lot of Nedbank Cup finalists. Traffic going down to the final in Moses Mabhida in Durban across the weekend. It'll be diverted in some heavy pressure, so just be aware of that. Cape Town, we're already queuing up on the M7 out of Mitchell's Plain. That's been busy since about 5:30 this morning. Queues coming up towards Samora Michelle. And the N2 busy and slow inbound between Khayelitsha and around about sort of Jan Smuts Drive in the Athlone area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. Soccer action last night. Orlando Pirates keeping their premiership title hopes flickering with a 2-1 win over Golden Arrows at Moses Mabhida Stadium. And in rugby, the junior Springboks, they fall to Australia in the under-20s. We'll find out more just before 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 8 minutes after 6. Wednesday, the 7th of May, 2025 has dawned. From Auckland Park in Johannesburg to wherever you are hearing us from this morning, good morning to you. We are SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. And this is your daily briefing session. It's the morning brief on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It is an honor to bring it to you this morning. Here's what's coming up on the show over the next 3 hours. Just some signposts and milestones of some of the stories that we're going to cover over the next 3 hours, a flavor and a sample thereof. What are the odds that the 133 or so cardinal electors gathering today at the Vatican's Sistine Chapel could actually get it right with their very first take at voting for the Pope? As you'll know, the centuries-old, solemn and secretive conclave process to elect the Catholic Church's 267th Pope starts today. And by all accounts, this is one of the most hard to call conclaves of recent years. We've been privileged in that we've witnessed more than one conclave in our lifetime. Many people will say, in centuries and decades before, people didn't really get to experience this process as many times as we have over the last few years. So we are told that this is one of the most hard to call conclaves of recent years. Pundits are talking about 3 possible pathways for the election. A pope that will continue Pope Francis's reformist ways, a conservative who will emphasize church doctrine over everything else, and the third pathway being a moderate who will not rock the boat much in either direction. Either way, in the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Father Hugh O'Connor, who is the Secretary General of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference, and we will be unpacking how the conclave will actually unfold over the next few hours, possibly days. Let's see what happens. Then the other story that we want to tell you is about a conversation we started yesterday. The country's nuclear build program is not only firmly back on the agenda, but actually appears to have been priced in and modalities for its delivery already mapped out. The Sunday Times reporting over the weekend that the country is looking to spend some 60 billion rand on the program to bolster our energy mix, with much of that expenditure, we are told, to be targeted at smaller modular reactors as opposed to a grand power station with a large capacity. So naturally, as you can expect, the debate is raging as to the suitability and desirability of nuclear energy for our context, especially in a country seeking to decarbonize, right? Seeking to reduce its carbon footprint, the carbon footprint of its energy generation, while at the same time not losing reliable baseload capacity in its grid. So that's the conversation, as well as issues around affordability and the technologies that are at play at the moment. So at about 7:20, I'll be speaking to Loyiso Tyabashe, who is the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa CEO, who will be weighing in on that debate. And then let me flag this story. On the day that the DA launched its legal challenge against the Employment Equity Act, that's what you and I were talking about yesterday. Well, on the same day that it was launching that challenge, the party scoring a significant victory in another court challenge. The Constitutional Court ruling that Section 6, subsection 1 and paragraph A of the Citizenship Act is unconstitutional. This is the section that basically dictated that if you are a South African citizen and you acquire the citizenship of another country voluntarily, you would automatically lose your South African citizenship. Well, that's gone now. Not only is it gone, actually, it's not that it starts now. Actually, it's gone even for those who had lost their citizenship as far back as when the Act came into effect in 1995. All of those people have had their citizenship restored. Dual citizenship in that manner, in a country that has a significant diaspora, what I know for a fact is that it has political implications. And I think the judgment made that point, that the rights that those people had lost must be restored. That includes, I would imagine, the right to vote. What are the implications, political implications for the various political parties and how they appeal to a South African diaspora that has just been increased manifold by the restoration of citizenship? That's just one of the many implications that we'll be exploring with my guest, Bophelo Sileke, at about 8:45 this morning. He's an independent legal analyst who will be talking to me at that time. So the full team, the full morning brief team is primed and ready with your updates throughout the morning. Jolani Tolongwepe at the news desk, Rob Byrne with your traffic, Zaikan at the sports desk, Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief, and we have Ndauleng Lechela as always with your business and market updates, and also Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20:07 this morning. The numbers to dial if you want to weigh in on these conversations and any others that you may want to raise: 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X, we are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram, and as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, and that is SAFM Radio. Strap yourself in. Your briefing session is about to begin. Together, let's make it a journey of information, knowledge, and insights sharing. Come, let's go.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
What's more lekker than a South African bushveld sunset or cruising down a pothole-free road? It's Fly Safe's lekker 11 Rand sale, of course. And it starts today at 9 a.m. sharp. That's right. 50,000 11 Rand flights will soon be up for grabs for travel to 30 November 2025, but they're going to fly faster than Cheslin heading for the tri-line. So don't be late, be lekker. Pull in to flysafair.co.za for the craziest sale of the year. T's and C's apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Right, let's check in with Melissa Buta now with the morning brief in brief. Melissa, this was a story that got many people talking. It was controversial and many people were outraged. The behavior of the VIP Presidential Protection Unit attached to Deputy President Paul Mashatile. There's been an outcome in the internal disciplinary process there, and I get the sense that we're not going to like it.
Morning, Thulasizwe. So yes, disappointing news coming from that. The 8 members of the VIP Protection Unit for the Deputy President who were caught on camera assaulting civilians on the N1 highway in July of 2023 have reportedly been acquitted by the South African Police Service in an internal process. Despite facing 12 criminal charges, including assault, pointing a firearm, and obstruction of justice, the police officers are currently out on 10,000 Rand bail. They did also return to office-bound duties in October of 2023. However, they do still remain under criminal prosecution, with the court case postponed for the 10th of June. A victim did testify for fearing her life as rifles were pointed at her without warning. So this outcome of them being acquitted by the South African Police Service has, prompted criticism from political figures such as the chairperson of the Parliament's Portfolio Committee of Police, Ian Cameron, who called the acquittal a betrayal of justice and an endorsement of police brutality. This is quite disappointing because there's a whole entire video showing that they brutally, attacked civilians.
Yeah.
So, no.
Yeah, it's one of those really hard to swallow outcomes, right? And I suppose at some point the police will have to take us into their confidence as to how we got to this point where in the internal disciplinary processes, these officers have been acquitted. Tell me about what the plans are for the family of Sisonke Mbolekwa, that student who was killed at the Walter Sisulu University.
So the family of Sisonke Mbolekwa has said that during who was fatally shot during the protest in Wusu, said the family said that they will be suing the school, as a result. They are saying that, it is unfortunate how things are turning out, even with the resident manager who is facing charges including murder and attempted murder. The family spokesperson, Neto Kolanisi, stated that they would be consulting their legal team to pursue legal action, which is separate from the charges that the manager residence is currently facing now.
The last one then, Melissa, tell me about what's come out in Parliament. A few days ago, there were a number of reports that were suggesting that it's a done deal that MacG will be appearing before Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications. Not so, is it?
Yes, so this is a complete turn of events, something unexpected. Parliament has declined to summon the podcast host MacG over his controversial comments about Minnie Dlamini, which were widely condemned as misogynistic and vulgar. Deputy Minister Steve Leteke, who called for MacG to be held accountable, describing his remarks as a form of online gender-based violence, has, went before the MPs. But despite some of the MPs supporting this call for MacG to be summoned, the committee decided against summoning him, citing limited capacity and the need for due legal processes to be followed. Instead, they endorsed pursuing the matter through appropriate bodies like the BCCSA and the Commission for Gender Equality.
Yeah, and that committee, just to correct myself, is the Committee for Women, Youth and People with Disabilities. So that's the outcome from that. Melissa, thank you. That's Melissa Buta there with your morning brief. In brief, just completing your picture with some of the stories that we are not necessarily able to get to this morning.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
On the weather front, here's how it's looking. There are no warnings from the South African Weather Service. So the rest of the country looks like this. Johannesburg, fine, with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 23. Tshwane, Pretoria, fine with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 24. Mbombela, fine 12 to 25. Polokwane, fine 8 to 26. Mahikeng, fine 8 to 25. Bloemfontein, fine 6 to 23. Kimberley, fine 8 to 25. Uppington, fine and windy, 9 to 28. Cape Town will be fine, becoming partly cloudy from the evening with a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 23. George will have morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, 10 to 21. Gqeberha will be fine, becoming cloudy from the afternoon, 13 to 22. East London will be partly cloudy, 16 to 23. Durban will be fine, 16 to 26. Richards Bay will be fine, 16 to 28. Pietermaritzburg, fine, 10 to 26.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Corporate Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs will be conducting public hearings on Independent Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill 2023 on 7 May 2025 at Legislature Auditorium in Mahikeng, Nakamudiri District, Sarafina Community Hall and Potchefstroom, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Kismet Community Hall in Kismet, Riebeck, Dr. Ruth Sohomutsi Mompati District, and Rustenburg in Old Town Hall, Bujanala District. All hearings start at 10.
This Thursday on EFC, Africa's greatest meet the warriors of Brazil on a night where 3 titles will be contested. Amanda Lino takes on Mariana Salles, Willie Van Rooyen takes on Kleberson Sousa, and in the main event, JC Lamprecht goes to war with Luis Paulo Picanso for the light heavyweight title. EFC 123 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
So here's the question that we'll be watching. Who will be the next leader of the 1.4 billion strong global Catholic Church, Bishop of Rome and head of the world's smallest but hugely influential state, the Vatican? The answer to that question will start to unfold today when 133 Catholic clergy begin filing into the Sistine Chapel, take a vow of secrecy, hold mass and take their seats and begin the process of voting for the 267th Pope. The conclave is a sacred process steeped in centuries of history and tradition and shrouded in mystery and secrecy. So let's speak to Father Hugh O'Connor, who is the Secretary General of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference. Father O'Connor, good morning and thank you for your time. So I was reading a piece that was talking about just how difficult this particular conclave is to call. But before we get into that nitty-gritty and that level of detail, just remind us how it all works, how a conclave works. What will happen today?
Well, quite simply, the bishops have already moved into Santa Marta, where they will stay. This afternoon, they will go to the Sistine Chapel. In essence, they will take the oath of secrecy. They will all be issued with ballot papers, and the voting will begin. And, you know, I think the issue of secrecy sometimes gets shrouded with a lot of conspiracy. You know, when we go to vote, we have a secret ballot. We should not be taking pictures of that ballot. We don't have to reveal who we voted for. The secrecy is around the freedom of each cardinal to vote for the candidate that they think will be the best pope, without any fear and anxiety. And that is why the ballots, after they're being counted, are then burnt. So nobody can go back and scratch through history and find out who so-and-so voted for this one, so-and-so voted for that one. It's also to protect people who do get voted for, but who don't get elected pope, that they don't carry that burden around, oh, what was wrong with them, or why they weren't good enough, or people beginning to kind of cast doubt about their person.
Yeah. So what's the likelihood that we could get an outcome today, the 2/3 majority being required for someone to be elected Pope? I was reading a piece by Ariel Beramendi, who is a former Vatican official of some 18 years standing, talking about how this particular conclave will be particularly difficult. And according to him, given its size, 133 electors as opposed to 117 the last time, and also the effect that Pope Francis had on the elective college in that it was diversified with appointments from all over the world.
I don't think the word difficult really is a good description. I think it is going to be a very diverse group that goes into the Sistine Chapel, as you said. The College of Cardinals has been universalized in that there are many more cardinals from around the world. And so they aren't looking at it sort of huge, big blocks from a particular country. Every cardinal that goes into the conclave has the opportunity, the chance of being elected Pope. We just do not know. My own gut feeling tells me that there won't be a result today. Even for the conclave with that elected Pope Benedict XVI, I mean, there was a lot of talk about Pope Benedict, Cardinal Ratzinger, taking that election quickly, and it takes a bit of time. People vote for different people in the first and the second round, and then gradually you get candidates emerging. And it is important that the person that gets elected has a 2/3 majority. So that is worked towards, and that takes time. So I don't think that we will see white smoke. I mean, it would be a pleasant surprise if we do see it this afternoon, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Lastly, Father O'Connor, the direction that the church will take going forward, to what extent is that going to be determined by the choice that the cardinals make? The same author that I was citing, Ariel Beramendi, talking about three possible pathways. A progressive pathway that says continue the reformist ways of Pope Francis, a conservative pathway that he sees that will emphasize more safeguarding Catholic doctrine over and above everything else, and then a third way that says it's a moderate pathway that will not rock the boat in either direction.
I think every pope in his own way rocks the boat, because not everyone is always happy or satisfied with what the person says or does. What Pope Francis brought to the church was a tremendous pastoral strength. He wasn't a reformer in the sense that he changed doctrines. What he did is he planted questions. He said, can we think about this or that in a pastoral sense? How do we deal with people who find themselves in situations that contradict church teaching? How do we reach out to include people who feel excluded? If we look over the past sort of 50, 60 years, we see that each pope brought their own personality, their own vision, inspired by the Holy Spirit. So I think a new pope will bring a new vision, and hopefully will have the ability to speak into the lives of the members of the church and also into the lives of the people of the world.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Father Hugh O'Connor, who is the Secretary General of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
A very good morning to you. Let's kick off with this story. Orlando Pirates keeping their Premiership title hopes flickering. They had a 2-1 win over Golden Arrows at Moses Mabhida Stadium. And we also have the coach from Arrows missing, saying they missed multiple chances and he was clearly frustrated. Here's Coach Manqoba Nciti.
We had a very good first half, where I think we could have scored as many goals as you can imagine against a very good team. But unfortunately, when you don't take your chances in football, you get punished. Second half, I think, was evenly balanced. We had moments, they had moments, but they were a little bit more clinical in their chances. And credit must be given to them. I think they used their chances very well.
Let's go to the junior Springboks. They surrendered a 17-point lead to go down 29-24 to Australia. Here's the junior Springboks coach, Kevin Foote.
I thought we had a great first half. I thought our game drivers were doing really well. Our 9 and 10 were communicating great, and I thought we played great in the territory game. We never got bored. And then just in the second half, I just think, soft penalties at times. And then we just lost the territorial battle. But I think it's great that we learn these lessons now in the Rugby Championship before the World Cup. And we can go back to the drawing board, we can look at the positives and carry on growing on that. And then, of course, the things that we didn't do well, we can go back and try and improve them. And I know we will.
More rugby. The Springbok Sevens captain Selwyn David says he's proud of his team. The Blitzboks were unbeaten in Los Angeles, finishing with a 19-5 win over Spain. David believes consistency is key.
This was our most consistent tournament. But I think the main thing was the coach told us, just stay in the moment. It doesn't matter if it goes well or goes bad. If you stay in the moment and leave everything that happened in the past, we will be successful.
And finally, tennis. Petra Kvitova claiming her first win since returning from maternity leave at the Rome Masters. She beat Camila Begu of Romania 7-5, 6-1. More sport will serve you. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
And I'm Jolani Tulongwe making headlines. South Africans who lost their citizenship due to Section 61A of the Citizenship Act of 1995 will now be recognized as citizens again. This follows a Constitutional Court judgment declaring the section unconstitutional. Judgment in the DA's application against Section 15A of the Employment Equity Act has been reserved. The section of the Act will give the Minister of Labour and Employment powers to set targets in particular employment sectors, and 16 people have been arrested and 3 million pills containing fentanyl have been found in what officials say was one of the largest ever drug operations in the United States. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Let's kick it off with a reminder about some misty conditions this morning out around Emelafeni. The N12 down towards Ochis is pretty misty, and the N4 between Bronkhorstspruit, Emelafeni and out to Middelburg also quite misty as well. Drive carefully, please, through those conditions. Crash coming up the N12 from El Dorado Park side. Collision just before you get to the Golden Highway exit. So the N12 in from Protea Glen passing Lenasia, stuck in quite a heavy backlog of traffic through there. Durban side this morning, keep an eye on the N3 inbound through those rumble strips between Pavilion and Spaghetti Junction. They have been causing some major problems just of late with sort of all-day delays on that section. Breakdown at Cliffdale, Key Ridge, Cliffdale, so anyway, the Pietermaritzburg, that traffic from Key Ridge starting to really back up. And Cape Town, in the middle of all the road construction on the N7, Jakes Covell Drive at Voortrekker Road, there's now been a truck collision there. So N7 going south through Goodwood is backed heavily already from Frans Conradi. That's in your way if you're trying to get through that Goodwood area towards Epping side. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauleng Lechela for the first update of the morning. Ndauleng, tell me about the preparations for a meeting between US and Chinese officials to have these trade negotiations.
Morning, Tula. So some good news coming through with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent set to meet with his Chinese counterpart, Vice Premier He Lefeng, in Switzerland this weekend to discuss economic and trade matters. Now, the talks are directed at easing the ongoing trade war between the two nations, which was sparked by President Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods. Now, Bessent emphasized the need for fair trade and de-escalation, stating that the current tariffs are unsustainable. The upcoming meeting will mark a big step toward Washington and Beijing beginning negotiations to potentially resolve this trade war. The current trade, or rather tariffs, has seen the U.S., or war rather, has seen the U.S. impose 145% tariffs on Chinese imports, prompting China to retaliate with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods. The outcome of the meetings will be closely watched, as it could potentially lead to the de-escalation of those tensions and more productive talks between both the nations, with the US and China being the world's largest and second largest economies respectively. The impact of these talks are really significant.
Yeah, so at least some attempt to pull back from the brink there as far as those two big economies are concerned. At the same time, China is making moves to boost its own economy. Tell me about their plans in relation to interest rates.
You know, one time I spoke to an analyst around the Chinese stimulus measures, and she mentioned that China will do whatever it can to make China great again. And we've seen this through the amount of stimulus measures it's released or unveiled, and there's more coming through. They are, or rather the People's Bank of China this time around, will be cutting its key interest rate and reducing its reserve requirement ratios to boost economic growth amid these tensions. According to Governor Pan Gongsheng, the 7-day reverse repurchase rate will be cut by 10 basis points to 1.4% from 1.5%, which is expected to bring down the loan prime rate by around 10 basis points. Additionally, the central bank will lower the reserve requirement ratios by 50 basis points, releasing about 138 $0.6 billion in liquidity into the market. Now, this move aims to maintain ample liquidity, reduce banks' liability costs, and drive down overall social financing costs. The decision to cut interest rates and reserve requirement ratios is in line with domestic and international economic financial conditions, as well as the performance of financial markets. Now, the central bank says it will use various monetary policy tools, including open market operations and medium-term lending facilities, to support the economy. The bank also plans to introduce new monetary policy instruments to support investment and financing areas like sci-tech innovation, boost consumption, and stabilize foreign trade.
Right, Darling, please give us our first roundup of market activity for this morning.
So starting in the U.S., stocks closing in the red overnight. The Dow Jones leading losses on that front, down over 0.9%. We are seeing some profit taking ahead of the Fed's interest rates decision, that's being announced later today. Then back at home, markets mixed. Traders awaiting real market moving catalysts before making any big moves. The oil share closing below the flat line yesterday, down 0.04%. On the currency front, sentiment still positive though, with the local unit trading stronger. It's at 18.23 to the dollar this morning. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks in the green following talks of Chinese rate cuts and improved sentiment on the back of the upcoming trade talks between Beijing and Washington.
All right, let's leave it there for this hour at least. That's Ndawling Lechela. She'll be back with more updates for you just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula with that Africa Update. Sipho, good morning. Let's start with an update out of Sudan. The military may have managed to entrench and assert itself in the capital, Khartoum, but as you are telling us this morning, fighting hasn't stopped and it's hit the city of Port Sudan.
Thulasizwe, refreshing morning and jump off to the listeners. Indeed, the paramilitary rapid support force attacked Port Sudan without power to us, and you can see the power outage from North Africa coming to the southern hemisphere to us around South Africa also, that there was a drone strike that hit major powers of the South Sudan. And what is worrying also to us, it is that, having this drones being hit over the Port Sudan, this is a strategic economic space of Sudan. The UN has already cancelled their flights there to us. The AU has been issuing media statements during the week calling for the cessation of hostilities between the government of Sudan and the RSF. This is the third day in a row to us in terms of the attack of Port Sudan. There are no flights going into the airport also to us. This is worrying if you look at the current conflict in North Sudan.
Yeah. In Cote d'Ivoire, tell me about the demands of the opposition coalition. They are calling for electoral reforms. What do they mean by that?
Tulas, and again, you are asking for the electoral reforms at this time. This is a coalition for peaceful change in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire decides in October 2025. Tulas, they are calling for a change on the electoral list, publication of election results at the polling stations. You can't ask for this, Tulas, when you are on an election mode. Normally, when you ask for the reforms, it's before 3 years or 4 years before you have elections. We have been trying to say that to many electoral commissions to us. Again, you remember there are notable candidates who have been removed from the list also. You have Bagbo, you have Charles Blair Gouda, you have also Tiam, who has also not been allowed to even participate as his citizenship was questioned. The electoral list has to be published to us next month on the 20th of June, and hence you have this tension that is going on in Ivory Coast. It seems Alassane Ouattara will have many challenges to us, and rumors are that he might be visiting South Africa also to us, and it is important for President Ramaphosa to engage him on the state of readiness of their elections in October.
Absolutely. Support. I like this story. Tell me about Mauritius and Japan seeking to, make melody between themselves.
That is quite true, but for me, what is so important, it reminds me of one of our cultural ambassadors and legends, Ntate Fasimenya, who also introduced music education at a primary level. Now here, you have the Japanese go to Mauritius and say that we want to put music curriculum and education at the primary level, and both governments allowing Thulas and just to develop the music education, the instrumental music programs at an elementary level. This has been done actually, Thulas. So if you look at Colombia, Egypt, Vietnam, and India, I think in Africa, South Africa, we need that, Thulas, to have a music education at a primary level. Absolutely. So that we have better singers in this country. Hence, it is very important when you talk of cultural diplomacy in motion during this Africa Month.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, any effort to try and introduce the creative arts as early as possible in the education of children should be welcomed. Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archive, open the page to 7 May 1985. What happened?
Thulas, it's almost 40 years. That was in Arusha when the OAU Special Committee on Apartheid and the government of the United Republic of Tanzania organized the International Conference on Women and Children under apartheid. That was a special committee, Thulas, very important in terms of the context of when this was held. Thulas, Southwest Africa, Namibia was going through independence between 85 and 1990. That conference also, Thulas, coincided also that with the question around the occupation of the facility of the Hitler and the Nazis that happened during that time. But who was there in that conference? We have the ANC, we have the PAC, we have SWAPO who was there, we have many civil rights movements who were part of that conference. Very important that it also condemned what has been going on in South Africa from 1960 to 1976. That forms part of our heritage and part of our freedom archives in this country. Asante sana Thulas, as also leading the conversation, SFM, observing the Africa Month.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update.
Bafana want to seal their envelope to East Africa with a paramount victory in front of their home fans. But the Flames plan to double the heat. This is the second leg of the final round of the Total Energies CAF Chan 2025 qualifiers. South Africa tackles Malawi on Sunday, 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
What's more lekker than a South African bushveld sunset or cruising down a pothole-free road? It's Fly Safair's lekker 11 Rand sale, of course, and it starts today at 9 a.m. sharp. That's right, 50,000 11 Rand flights will soon be up for grabs for travel to 30 November 2025. But they're going to fly faster than Cheslin heading for the tri-line. So don't be late, be lekker. Pull into flysafair.co.za for the craziest sale of the year. T's and C's apply.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Let's take you to this story now. The KwaZulu-Natal Department of Education are moving to provide an update on delayed payments to service providers under the National School Nutrition Program, attributing the issues to technical challenges with a newly implemented financial system. The department insists the payment delays have nothing to do with any financial difficulties it may be experiencing, but are rather occasioned by purely technical factors related to their payment system. So let's speak to Mlu Mtshali, who is the Media Liaison Officer in the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Education. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So 100% you are attributing this to technical issues. Explain those issues to us.
Thulas, good morning, and good morning to your listeners as well. Yeah, thanks. We are made aware that some of our service providers were not paid 20% of the payments that were due in April were not successful due to some technical difficulties with the payment system. This follows an upgrade which was meant to increase compliance with SCORE. So we learned that there was an interface issue and some of these payments had failed. So we
compliance with SCORE.
If I can just take you back.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just trying to not lose anyone in the process. Explain to us. You're talking about this upgrade was meant to increase compliance with SCORE. Explain that as you make that point.
Okay, so this was an upgrade from past version 5 to version 6. So it was just an update that's supposed to increase compliance with the reporting system. But unfortunately, we learned after the update that there were some errors that created an interface issue with the PESAL system. So this resulted in some of the payments becoming unsuccessful. So that error has been corrected,
Sure.
and we are told that yesterday that all the payments to service providers were done, and those payment runs were successful.
Why did this upgrade to the payment system only affect 22% and the 78% was successful? Was it being done in the midst of carrying out the payments?
No, it wasn't done in the midst of the payments. It's an issue that occurs with how it verifies the payment. So when it does verification, if it picks up something that it does not like, then that payment will fail. So those payments had to be corrected, and so for them to be successful. So I think it's just a glitch in the system that we are told now has been corrected. So I think going forward, we will not be having similar problems.
But was it being carried out in the midst of payments is what I'm asking? Because if it was carried out before the payment runs, one imagines that the system would have been done and dusted, your upgrades would be done, and then you would do a run and everything would run smoothly, not just in 78% of the payments, but in 100% of the payments. It failing in the 22% suggests that this was being done as payments were being made, which I would say should not have been happening, given the sensitivity of the process, as well as the program that we're talking about here, the National School Nutrition Program.
That's exactly the question that we were asking, but we were informed that this upgrade was done last month in the middle of April. So there was no expectation that there would be challenges with the payments. But for some reason, which we are still not clear about, those payments were unsuccessful, and this was the information that we were given.
You will understand the degree of skepticism, right? Because we're coming from a backdrop against which, at some point, the department had issues with these payments that were related to budgetary constraints. So when we ask these questions, it's against that backdrop that you are telling us that this time it's technical, but people will rightly ask, does it have nothing to do with some of the challenges you've faced, including a report recently that talked about difficulties in the payment for early childhood development?
Yeah, so we have always been upfront with the challenges that we have faced in terms of the fiscals, and you would know that those challenges were due to the budget cuts that the department faced over the years from 2021 up to 2024, and those budget cuts which amounted to close to 28 billion rands. But this is totally different. The funding for the nutrition program is a grant funding. So that funding is ring-fenced, and it is not even coming to the department directly. So those payments are made directly from the National Treasury payment system, and that is the system that experienced difficulties in the last 5 days. So we're told that those challenges have been fixed, and they're purely technical, and they had nothing to do with the finances of the department.
So as we speak this morning, are you able to give a guarantee that 100% of all the service providers and payments that were due have been done as of yesterday?
Yes.
And secondly, was there a yes from your side on that question?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I did confirm yesterday already that these payments were made and the payment runs were successful, yes.
The second part of my question then is how can you guarantee that we will not be back here next month?
Like I said, this is not our payment system that the service providers are being paid from, and it's important to note that it's a national treasury system that we have to. The way that the grant funding works is that we have to do approval on our side so that the National Treasury can pay. So that is as far as our role comes. But we are confident that going forward, all of the payments that have been approved from our side will be paid, and they will be paid on time.
Right.
And I just want to note that these payments were for the month of April, and before that, we did not have a problem with this with the payment for national school nutrition programs. Yes.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Mlum Jali, his media liaison officer in the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Education.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Really heavy Pretoria North area this morning. Got a combo of quite a bit going on. There's a crash at Vanderboom Junction. So coming out of Pretoria North, that's very heavy, swinging in through Vanderboom Poort on Lavender down towards the junction. It's all very heavily back through that part of Pretoria North. Also no traffic lights on the Soutpan Road at the 566 road. That's the Rossen Road, Soutpan Road arriving down from Onderstepoort. Very heavy. And at the same time, a stationary truck on the M1 South at the N4 Emelachlanni Highway split. Big traffic arriving from Montana into that one. Joburg side, a collision on the N12 this morning, approaching the Golden Highway. Motorists coming out of Protea Glen, passing Lenasia, stuck in a big queue up towards the Eldorado Park area. Durban, N2 North, pretty heavy this morning, leaving Toti up towards Prospect and up towards sort of Tweedy Hill and onto Joyner Road. Of course, they've been working on that road overnight. It's very heavy this morning. Breakdown at Key Ridge, causing a backlog on your way through to Cliffdale. That's heading towards Pietermaritzburg side. And Cape Town, in amongst all the roadworks on Jake's Kerwell Drive at Goodwood, there's been a truck crash this morning. N7 South is heavy from France Conradi as you make your way down towards that railway bridge area. Breakdown on the N2 inbound at Bunga Avenue. That plus a weight of Wednesday traffic means the N2 inbound pretty heavy from the airport past that vehicle at Langa and then all the way through to Hospital Bend. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
For news on South African industry and mining, Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly has you covered. Click through to Creamer Media's Engineering News each day for the latest on the people and companies shaping the energy transition and South African industry. Keep your finger on the critical minerals pulse by visiting Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. For deeper insight, subscribe to the Engineering News and Mining Weekly magazine, out on Fridays. Creamer Media, current, credible, comprehensive.
Slipper Day is on the 30th of May, and I'm helping to make big dreams come true. When you support Slipper Day, you're helping Reach for a Dream bring smiles and joy to children facing tough illnesses. Do you want to help too? You can visit reachforadream.org.za to find out more about Slipper Day. Let's do it for the dreamers! This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, made the pay. From the grind to the glam. Anela Zondo The Glow Up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi, for sure.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's bring you this story now. The Department of Basic Education has revealed alarming figures about school infrastructure, with more than half of all public schools that are classified as being in very poor condition located in the Eastern Cape. This highlights deep regional disparities in the state of educational facilities. Let's speak to Itumeleng Mutlabane, who is the Deputy Secretary General of Equal Education. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. Are you surprised by these figures that have been revealed by the Department of Basic Education, given the long-standing campaigns that you have waged around school infrastructure?
As Equal Education, we are not surprised at all, especially because we are closest to the ground. We've been doing school visits. We've been able to even dispute some of the data that has come through the Department of Education through NIMS or the EFMS, because we've always understood that the problem is bigger than what was being reported. And so we've also seen the Department of Education failing to meet the law of norms and standards for school infrastructure, all the deadlines before they were removed. And so that tells you clearly that the infrastructure backlogs in the Eastern Cape particularly are much bigger than what is being reported by the department.
Say a bit more about that. I mean, from the work that you've done on the ground, the report says 220 of the 390 schools nationally that are rated as being in very poor condition, 220 of them are in the Eastern Cape. What's happening in the Eastern Cape?
Part of the biggest problem is schools that are built with inappropriate structures. As Equal Education, we have an example of a school that was built by parents in 1987, but the Department of Education has not come back to renovate the school or to build a new school for these children. And so we have many schools of that nature that the department is either wanting to rationalize, and therefore they're no longer planning to build these schools, which is exacerbating the problem of school infrastructure inside the Eastern Cape. But number two, there is a big problem around maintenance. Even the schools that were built 10 years ago, the Department of Education has failed to maintain them. And therefore, that's why the numbers of schools with dilapidated infrastructure continue to increase instead of decreasing, as the department is refusing to either build or maintain the schools.
And when we say infrastructure here, what does it look like on the ground from the work that you do? It's beyond the sanitation issues that you and I talk about from time to time, is it?
Yes, it's beyond sanitation issues. We are talking about classroom issues where a lot of schools are in dilapidated classrooms. We also have a lot of schools that are struggling with roofs. We know that in the Eastern Cape we've had disasters. There's many schools that have come before the department looking for emergency funds. And that means that in these schools, they can only use a particular portion of the school and they cannot use other classrooms, which results in overcrowding in different schools within the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape has the most schools that are not fenced. A lot of the schools in South Africa that are not fenced are housed in the Eastern Cape, and so that means that security is compromised inside these schools. And lastly, we also have a big problem around water and electricity facilities that are also related to the municipality services. And we had a roundtable with the Eastern Cape Department of Education to discuss their relationship in them being able to advocate for municipal services in schools. A lot of the schools that don't have water are also in the Eastern Cape. And even though the department reports that they have each school has basic electricity, but what we see on the ground is that a lot of them have unreliable forms of getting electricity, and other schools don't have electricity at all.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Itumeleng Mutlabane is the Deputy Secretary General of Equal Education. Yeah, interesting reading coming through from the Department of Basic Education, and it also highlights the disparities, the regional disparities, with Gauteng and the Western Cape, for example, reporting no schools that are said to be in very poor condition. That's not to say that schools in these provinces don't face their own infrastructure challenges here and there, but there are no schools that are considered in very poor condition. Eastern Cape and Limpopo is spot of bother there in as far as those schools are concerned. And get this, only 12% of public schools in the country are said to be in an excellent condition. So that gives you pause for thought. But for now, let's check in with the news with Jolani Tolo Ngwepe at this hour.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Top stories, Asawa. Some South Africans who lost their citizenship will now be recognized as citizens again, and government officials recommit to seeking justice for the George Building collapse victims. Good morning. South Africans who lost their citizenship due to Section 61A of the Citizenship Act of 1995 will now be recognized as citizens again. This follows a Constitutional Court judgment declaring the section unconstitutional. The Act previously stated that South Africans who lose their citizenship if they voluntarily acquired another nationality, unless they had applied for and received permission to retain it from the Minister of Home Affairs. Justice Stephen Majid delivered the ruling at the Constitutional Court in Braamfontein yesterday.
The court makes the following order. 1. The order of constitutional invalidity of the Supreme Court of Appeal is confirmed. 2. It is declared that Section 61A of the South African Citizenship Act 88 of 1995 is inconsistent with the Constitution and is invalid from its promulgation on 6 October 1995. 3. It is further declared that those citizens who lost their citizenship by operation of Section 61A of the South African Citizenship Act 88 of 1995 are deemed not to have lost their citizenship.
Judgment in the DA's application against Section 15A of the Employment Equity Act has been reserved. This section of the Act will give the Minister of Labour and Employment powers to set targets in particular employment sectors. The DA has described the new amended Act as unconstitutional and unfair, arguing that this move by government is introducing racial quotas. However, the ANC has rejected the DA's court application, describing it as nothing but a gimmick. ANC Gauteng Provincial Task Team Coordinator Hope Babo says the DA has misinterpreted the Act.
This gimmick by the DA, it's an affront and an assault and an insult to the majority of black people. By black people, I mean Africans, Indians and Coloureds. Coloured people and Indian people are not only found in the Western Cape and in KZN. They are found all over the country. The Act tries to deal with centuries, over 500 years of colonialism and the crime of apartheid, which started in 1948, taking on from colonialism.
Constables Kiamogetswe Base and Cebekhulu Linda had special skills necessary for the Tabure unit when they joined the unit last year in July. This is according to Unit Commander Brigadier SP Kouga, who spoke at a joint memorial service for 3 constables whose bodies were retrieved from the Henops River in Centurion in Pretoria last week. Kouga says Base was placed at the cyber unit because of her IT qualifications, while Linda, whose father was a former police officer, was placed in the security intelligence.
These 2 colleagues, how Sheba Base, she was always bubbly, always smiling. She was just a darling. How Sheba Linda, I used to say to Linda, I want to fella. Unfortunately, by then, in the office, right under my nose. When you are here, was a police member. He was a very nice gentleman.
Government officials say they have recommitted to seeking justice for those affected by the George Building collapse in the Western Cape. A service was held yesterday in the George Civic Centre to mark 1 year since the tragedy, in which 34 people lost their lives and 28 others were left injured and some maimed for life. Survivors, family members of the deceased, as well as representatives from government, service organisations and members of the public attended a commemoration service. During his speech, Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, said they will leave no stone unturned.
Buildings don't collapse without reason, and they don't collapse on their own. Accountability cannot be optional when human tragedy takes place at the hands of human beings. The Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, through the Council for the Built Environment and its body, the Engineering Council of South Africa, has commissioned an in-depth investigation into what went wrong.
Gift of the Givers founder, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, also addressed those attending.
And the minister has alluded to that this should have never have happened, the human error, and it should never happen again. I'm very thankful that he has mentioned that. and mentioned the investigation will take place and those will be called to account because people have suffered. We saw the suffering on your faces in the halls and outside. We saw the tears, the anxiety and the fear awaiting. Is anybody coming out of the rubble?
And finally, 16 people have been arrested and 3 million pills containing fentanyl have been found in what officials say was one of the largest ever drug operations in the United States. At a news conference in Washington yesterday, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi described the operation as a significant victory in the fight against drug trafficking.
This multi-agency operation targeted one of the largest and most dangerous drug trafficking and foreign terrorist organizations in our country. The DEA seized 11.5 kilos of fentanyl, including an astounding approximately 3 million fentanyl pills.
Recapping the top story this hour, South Africans who lost their citizenship due to Section 61A of the Citizenship Act of 1995 will now be recognized as citizens again. This follows a Constitutional Court judgment declaring the section unconstitutional. For SFM News, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
This just in, Zandile, a 36-year-old woman, has added an unbelievable 918 Rand a month more money to her budget. That's right, she switched to Outsurance and now saves 918 Rand a month on her 2024 Cherry Tiggo 1.5 litre. Nice one, Zandile. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you can pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy around Pretoria North today. A stationary truck on the M1 South before the N4 split to Hatfield and Emelafeni. That traffic backed heavily right through and beyond Montana's on-ramp. No lights on the Soutpan Road, the M35 at Roslyn Road. That's a heavy queue coming in from Onderstepoort. And a crash in Pretoria North around Vanderboom Junction causing quite big backlogs there as well. Still queuing up on the M12 from Protea Glen up towards Eldorado Park. That's a crash before the Golden Highway. R59 North arriving up towards Klip River Drive exit this morning. That is quite slow. Delays coming in through that Randval area. We'll keep a watch on that. Durban's all-day delays on the N3 have built up now. This is into the Rumble Street section of Pavilion Mall. Traffic already back to Paradise Valley. M4 inbound. An obstruction just after the M7 at Umbilo, so the Southern Freeway is quite heavy. And Cape Town, a lengthy delay up the R300 today. It's a crash before Van Riebeeck Road. Traffic parking all the way back to Hindle Road at Delft. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer action. Orlando Pirates are not giving up on the Betway Premiership title race without a fight. And we've got the Junior Springboks falling to Australia in the Under-20s Rugby Championship clash. Details just before 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 7 on this Wednesday. It's great to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the Morning Brief. Let me tell you briefly what is coming up within this hour. In the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Khalebuwe Mudisapudi, who is an employment law and employee benefits consultant. We'll be talking and reflecting after the start of these hearings, the court hearings into the DA's challenge to the Employment Equity Amendment Act. You remember this is the latest battleground between the national coalition, governing partners, the Government of National Unity partners, the DA on the one hand and the ANC on the other hand. So the DA taking aspects of the Employment Equity Act as amended, taking those to court and basically arguing that they will defeat the whole purpose of growing the economy and creating jobs. But the ANC, on the other hand, batting for those and saying that the DA is anti-transformation in that approach. So that conversation with Kgaleboe Modisapudi coming up in the next few minutes. And then we'll reflect on this story. It has to do with the conversation we started yesterday about the role of nuclear energy in as far as our energy mix is concerned. You'll remember yesterday we had a conversation in which with Mohammed Mahdi, who was talking about some of the difficulties and the moment having been missed to really go in on nuclear as one of the main energy sources that are fueling our energy mix. So today we'll be hearing from the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa CEO, Loyiso Tyabashe, who has a counter view as far as the role of nuclear is concerned. This against the backdrop of reports that emanated from the Sunday Times that said that South Africa's nuclear program is not only back on the agenda, but it appears to have been priced in at a price tag of some 60 billion rand. So that conversation with Loyiso Tyabashe coming up within this half hour as well. And then a bit later on, we'll tell you about the efforts that the city of Tshwane says it's taking to strengthen anti-corruption reporting systems to ensure that whistleblowers are able to come through anonymously and report instances of corruption without facing exposure to danger. So those are some of the highlights of the stories that we will cover in this hour. Of course, through it all, I'd like to hear from you, your own reflections on these and other stories. Give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
This Thursday on EFC, Africa's greatest meet the warriors of Brazil on a night where 3 titles will be contested. Amanda Lino takes on Mariana Salles, Willie Van Rooyen takes on Kleberson Sousa, and in the main event, JC Lamprecht goes to war with Luis Paulo Picanso for the light heavyweight title. EFC 123 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Looking for an MBA that works wherever you do? Henley Business School Africa offers the only international MBA in South Africa, backed by a global network of over 100,000 alumni, leaders in 155 countries. Ranked #1 for alumni network potential, Henley gives you the connections, confidence, and capability to succeed locally and globally. This is your invitation to join a world of opportunity. Visit henleysa.ac.za.
What's more lekker than a South African bushveld sunset or cruising down a pothole-free road? It's Fly Safair's lekker 11 Rand sale, of course, and it starts today at 9 a.m. sharp. That's right, 50,000 11 Rand flights will soon be up for grabs for travel to 30 November 2025. But they're going to fly faster than Cheslin heading for the tri-line. So don't be late, be lekker. Pull in to flysafair.co.za for the craziest sale of the year. T's and C's apply.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
15 minutes after 7. The ball is well and truly in play in the legal tussle between the Democratic Alliance and the Labour Minister, Nomakosazana Meth, and by extension, the DA's governing coalition partner, the ANC. This over the Employment Equity Amendment Act, which the DA took to court yesterday, arguing that the new legislation is unconstitutional and opens the door for rigid racial quotas that harm non-designated groups. So the high stakes case is currently has been heard in the Gauteng division of the High Court yesterday. So let's bring in Kgaleboe Modisapudi, who is the employment law and employee benefits consultant, to talk to us this morning. Kgaleboe, good morning, and thank you for your time. So which one is it? Race-based, rigid quotas that are going to harm the economy, or necessary redress of past imbalances aimed at fast-tracking and pushing industry to move in the direction of achieving employment equity?
Well, that's the question that the judge has to decide, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the arguments were very interesting in both directions. My view, though, is that the case that the DA put is a bit of a stretch to the definitions and the supposed inherent risk that included in amendment. As they submitted, the case itself is theoretical. So the judge then has to balance the scheme of the amendment against the scheme that existed in the legislation before the amendment. And I think one of the key points is that the DA didn't put any counter argument to the assertion made by the minister that the scheme that existed, which is in Section 15, has not changed at all, and that the amendments do not in any way contradict Section 9, subsection 2 of the Constitution. And I think that's where the question lies for the judge to decide. It was very interesting. I think a lot of it quite technical.
Yeah.
So the judge has a lot of work to do in terms of doing the analysis of the papers and the submissions made by both parties before arriving at the decision.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if this was addressed in the arguments, and I didn't watch all of it, Khalebu. The argument, the central argument for the DA is that introducing in the amendment, so Section 15, capital A, which is part of the newer sections, introducing the power of the minister to identify sectors in the economy and say, we want to achieve representation of designated groups at all occupational levels in the workforce within these sectors, 18 at the moment, in terms of the regulations that the minister has issued. The DA is arguing that shifts it from what was before targets that were aspirational, that, you know, employers and companies could achieve themselves, to actually now going to nationally set targets set by a minister that actually amount to a race-based quota. What did you make of that argument?
Well, that argument is, for me, quite difficult to sustain. At a philosophical level, I think the question is, has the law as it existed at the moment, has it achieved the transformational goals that the Constitution itself dictates after 20-25 years? And I think if you look at an analysis of the Employment Equity Commission's report, firstly, you have about a 34% compliance by employers across the different sectors in the industry. The second one is that at top management, you still have about 64% white male representation. So a lot of things have not changed. And a part of the argument that the minister was making in the submissions made is that the employers have been given the discretion. There has not been much progress. Something different needed to be done. Otherwise, the government's policy objective of transformation is not going to be achieved if something different is not done. Now, what the minister has then done through the amendment, particularly in Section 15A, but others as well, is to then add a different layer to the target setting. And that layer, and that's where one of the key arguments is, that layer is not taking away the responsibility and the authority of employers to set their targets given their specific context. But to do so, which is the second layer that's now added, has to be done in the context of looking at it from a sectoral level, which will be a picture or a perspective none of the employers will then have. But it's perspective that when you look at it from the minister's perspective, as well as the commission's perspective, that is the Employment Equity Commission, they see a different picture and they see where the gaps are. And they either do something about that to address the gaps, which is what the Constitution obliges them to do, or they do nothing. Right. In which case there will have been probably another case somebody brings to court to say the government is not discharging its constitutional obligation.
Right. Lastly, let's talk a bit about the other argument that the DA presented. That has to do with their argument that if you set national targets, you're not providing, at least in this current context, in this legislation as it is now, for a differentiated approach where the population is composed slightly differently. For instance, the examples they give being the Western Cape with a lot of coloured South Africans residing in the Western Cape, and as well as KwaZulu-Natal with a lot of Indian South Africans residing in KwaZulu-Natal. What did you make of that argument?
Well, that argument presupposes that the amendments have completely destroyed the scheme that existed in the Act before the amendment. And that scheme effectively said in Section 9, subsection 2, that when the targets are set, when the goals are set, the context is relevant, and the context will be what are the demographics in each specific area, in each specific employer, and how do you then address that in the context of relative to the national picture?
Yeah.
Now, what the DA's argument is that by simply setting the targets at a sectoral level, let's put it that way, at a sectoral level, you are putting quotas in place. But what for me that argument doesn't take into account is that which is the argument that the minister made, is that there are no quotas, there are flexible targets, and the scheme as it existed, which is around saying there may be reasonable grounds for non-compliance. That is not taken away. So those submissions can then be made. So if there's an issue, for example, with the KZN provincial government non-compliance with the Employment Equity Act or the target set, for example, the argument they could make very clearly is that when you look at the demographics in KZN, they are completely different from the demographics in the Northern Cape.
All right.
And that on its own is enough to then give an exclusion to that or an exception.
All right. I've got to leave it there. That's Kgalebo Mudisapudi, who is employment law and employee benefits consultant.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Let's speak now to Loyiso Tyabashe, who is the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa CEO. We're talking about, in light of reports that the country's nuclear build program is not only firmly back on the agenda, but appears to have been priced in and modalities are being worked out for its delivery. And we're talking here about the Sunday Times reporting on the weekend that the country is looking to spend some 60 billion rand on the program to bolster our energy mix. So let's speak to Loyiso Tyabashe then. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So there was a conversation we started out yesterday that was looking at the desirability and suitability of nuclear in the context of South Africa seeking to decarbonize without losing that baseload energy. Do you believe that there's a role for nuclear in addressing that particular question?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to the listeners at large. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's important as we start the debate around the energy security in this country in terms of what it is that we are trying to resolve. I think this country and the continent at large suffer from the huge energy deficit. We've seen it with load shedding in South Africa. We see it with electrification of the African continent, that we're sitting at less than 50% of the continent being electrified. So energy security for me becomes a central point. How do we reach that? I believe nuclear is one of the key solutions that cannot be left behind in doing that, because you see it with the most advanced economies. You look at the US, you look at France, you look at China, Korea, everyone else that is serious about energy security, affordable electricity, as well as achieving the decarbonization goals, is installing nuclear power plants as we speak today.
So in what form, though? Because about a decade ago, when we had this debate, we were talking, I think it was 9,600 megawatts, if I remember correctly, that controversial process that we were seeking to undertake at the time. But it seems now we are talking small modular reactors. The question becomes scalability and the, affordability and viability of these small modular reactors. Are they still scalable and affordable?
The debate, as you correctly say, is now moving towards small modular nuclear reactors. And there is a huge hope in that these will help solve the issues that the nuclear industry has suffered from in terms of the huge investment that is needed for the upfront capital for the big plants. With these plants that are coming on board, that upfront capital seems to be lower. However, we only have at this point in time 2 small modular reactors that are in operation that we can draw lessons from, and this is China and Russia. Everyone else, about 70 designs, are being it's reactors that are still on design in various stages of design and approval processes. So we've yet to see the viability of these as we move forward, but I can state that the 2 countries that are operating those is China and Russia. But also, I want to state that with South Africa's grid, because the space also for the small modular reactors is where you have smaller grids and you have to deploy in microgrids. Our network, our grid infrastructure can support big reactors, as shown by the support for Kouga Power Station. So I believe that South Africa should be a recipient of both big and small reactors. It's not an either or. It's about how can your grid perform and where do you want to purpose it. But there are other economies and other grid setups that require really smaller modular reactors. So it is important that we advance the discussion, not excluding any of the 2 sizes, small or big.
And lastly, the concern around the lead times that it would take, right? You were outlining the issues that we are seeking to address, and part of the concern has been just all the approvals and the financing models that would be needed would take us at least a decade to get to a point where any construction is really happening. That's been the argument. What do you say to that?
So this debate of time is a very important one because it talks to planning like any other big infrastructure project. If I trivialize the discussion, it's like saying my child mustn't go to university and do a 4-year degree because it takes long. No. What you want is to have secure energy in the form of nuclear. We've seen that as you go around the globe, that once you pay your school fees in getting these reactors on the ground, you actually derive benefits in all aspects of the trilemma, which is energy security and decarbonization, as well as low cost to the consumer at the end of the day. So we need to be in the long game when we talk energy. It's not an overnight game. It's a long game, and we need as a country to think in that direction.
All right. Thank you. You've gotten us thinking this morning. That's Loyiso Tyabashe, who is the Nexa CEO, talking to us about the debate around the country's plans around nuclear energy.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Welcome to your sports news. We'll kick off with Orlando Pirates keeping their premiership title hopes alive. 2-1 was their win over Golden Arrows at Moses Mabhida Stadium last night. The match doubling up as a dress rehearsal for this weekend's Nedbank Cup final against Kaizer Chiefs at the same venue. More soccer news. South Africa showcasing their attacking prowess with a 4-1 win over Sierra Leone in the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations Group A tie. The victory put South Africa second behind Sierra Leone. Elsewhere, David Fratessi's extra-time goal decided a Champions League semi-final for the ages as Inter Milan beat Barcelona 7-6 on aggregate. And Declan Rice saying Arsenal can achieve something great and deliver one of the biggest nights in the club's history by overcoming to beat Paris Saint-Germain and book their place in the Champions League final.
So there's no fear. Like I said, I think the goal inside 3 minutes probably shocked us a little bit, shocked the atmosphere a little bit. But once we found a foothold in the game again, and we started creating chances, like I said, the goalkeeper made some amazing saves. We fully believed that we could beat them. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be, but we've seen enough and we know enough as a team that tomorrow night we can do something really, really good, and we definitely believe that we belong at this level.
Rugby, the Springbok Sevens captain Selwyn David says he's extremely proud of his team. They were unbeaten in Los Angeles. The World Championship winners, the Blitzbokke, ended the series in fourth with 70 points. Named player of the final, David says they need to replicate their World Championship form.
Yeah, I think the most important thing in Sevens is to stay consistent. Not just in one tournament, but in every tournament. Next year is going to be... I think there's going to be more tournaments, so if we can be consistent for 9 tournaments in a row, it's going to be great.
And finally, tennis. Petra Kvitova claiming her first win since returning from maternity leave at the Rome Open. She saw off Irina Camelia Begu of Romania in straight sets 7-5, 6-1. Kvitova next faces Tunisian Ons Jabeur in the second round. Kvitova, who won Wimbledon in 2011 and 2014, reached number 2 in the world, said she doubted whether she would return to the international arena.
I had some chances even before some of the matches, but getting the win, I think, is the big relief, I would say. I was, too much focusing on it, so I'm glad it's there. I'm done with it, so I can just go forward and see what the future brings. But I'm very happy how I managed it today. As you mentioned, I was feeling the same on the court, actually, trying, saving those break points. And
we'll rally back with more sport. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
And I'm Jalani Tulongwepe, making headlines. The case against 3 of the 4 suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Mdluli is expected to be heard at the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. South Africans who lost their citizenship due to Section 61A of the Citizenship Act of 1995 will now be recognized as citizens again. This follows a Constitutional Court judgment declaring the section unconstitutional, and the City of Johannesburg has clarified the confusion around a surcharge by the city on electricity tariffs. The city's finance MMC, Margaret Arnolds, says the surcharge has remained the same, contrary to reports of an additional 70 rand to the original amount. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Delays on the R59 for motorists coming off the Vaal this morning. A crash up by Clipper River Drive. Quite a heavy queue. It's a really busy route these days at R59. A lot of developments down that side and big traffic as you come up from Randval in towards that scene just before the Clipper River off-ramp. Joburg's N12, the crash at El Dorado Park. That is cleared. It's out of the way. Pretoria having a really busy run through the traffic. No lights. Soutpan Road at Rossen Road. That's heavy in from Ondas to Port. Broken down truck on the M1 South at the N4 Hatfield split. Really big delays coming through from Montana. You're going to sit on Sefaka Makato this morning just to get into the N1 South. That's how bad it is, all the way down through Stormful and right down to that N4 exit. And the N14, the Krugersdorp Highway, queuing again from Pretoria West up towards the Brockfontein N1 on-ramp area. Durban this morning, the N3 queuing now from Paradise Valley through the Rumble Strip section just past Pavilion Mall. That queue took a little while to build up this morning, but it will be an all-day thing. If you come through Pinetown towards Durban, give yourself plenty of time to get through. Also, the M13, just note a lot of traffic using that these days, so extra delays between Westville and Sherwood as motorists look for that route to avoid the inevitable backlog on that N3, so it's heavy all the way around. Crash in on Durban's M41 at the M4, so watch for delays out that side. The N2 at Key Ridge, still with a breakdown, so on your way to Pietermaritzburg, queue to work through there. Cape Town, the N1 into town, Plattekloof through towards Marine Drive, looking quite slow. The R300 crash up at Van Riebeeck Road has been cleared, but there is a backlog of traffic moving slowly from Delft towards the Kales River exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again, Dowling. Let's start in mining. Tell me about Anglo Gold Ashanti and Goldfields and this joint venture that they were seeking to undertake in Ghana. That's off the table, is it?
Well, for now, Thulas and the gold miners agreeing to pause discussions on their proposed joint venture to combine the Iduapriem and Tarkwa gold mines in Ghana. This decision allows both companies to focus on improving their respective standalone operations. The joint venture, announced in 2023, would have created the largest gold mine in Africa, but the companies were unable to secure permission from Ghana's previous government and had to resume negotiations with the new administration of President John Mahama. Now, the pause in talks is attributed to the surge in gold prices, which have risen roughly 75% since the proposed JV was announced and recently hit an all-time high above $3,500 an ounce. Now, according to analysts, the increase offers significant flexibility to the individual mines, likely undermining the merits of the joint venture. Now, both companies remain committed to enhancing operational performances at their individual mines. Goldfields Tarkwa mine produced 537,000 ounces of gold last year, while Anglo Gold's Iduapriem produced 237,000 ounces. The companies have agreed on an ownership structure of 60% for Goldfields, 30% for Anglo Gold Ashanti, and the remaining portion for the Ghanaian government. That's if those talks continue, that will be the ownership structure. Now, the pause in talks doesn't rule out the possibility of reconsidering the JV in the future.
Yeah. What's not been paused, though, is the Metrofile takeover. You're saying that that deal is advancing.
That's right. Now, Metrofile and an unnamed bidder are edging closer to sealing a deal. Metrofile said it is in advanced negotiations with a single party interested in acquiring the company. Initially, the document specialist received multiple approaches, but it has narrowed down the potential buyers to one. The independent board established to evaluate the offer has allowed the interested party to conduct a due diligence, including a thorough investigation of the company's financials, operations, and business health. In the meantime, shareholders are advised to exercise caution when trading the company's shares until further announcements are made. Metrofile is currently valued at 1.1 billion rands and listed on the JSE. It has been undergoing a strategic reset focusing on digital subscriptions while maintaining its paper-based storage dominance here at home in South Africa. Now, this isn't the first time a takeover bid has been heard from Metrofile. In 2020, a deal with US-based Housatonic Partners fell through during the pandemic, and so this potential takeover has been watched really closely.
Lastly, Dowling, please recap for us how the markets are looking at this hour.
So it's green screens in Asia as markets cheer upcoming trade talks between Beijing and Washington. With that, the Shanghai Composite is leading the gains on that front, up over 0.6%. Over in Wall Street, futures are in positive territory, a sharp turn from yesterday's downbeat close. The Fed in focus today. Expectations are for a hold, but all eyes will be on that press briefing where analysts are expecting Jerome Powell, Fed Chair, to make commentary around tariffs. Then coming back home, markets mixed with the all share closing flat in yesterday's session, down 0.04%. The rand, however, making gains this morning. It is sitting at 18.23 to the dollar.
Dowling Lichela, with your second report of the morning, she'll be back with one more just after 8:30, in which she will give you a sense of the kind of trading day you can expect in the markets.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Saints understand it's too late to change things around, but it's never too late to beat defending champions and bow with pride.
He chips the goalkeeper. It's an absolute beauty. It's an absolute beauty from Musa.
However, the Citizens are forced to settle for a top 3 finish. They want nothing but 3 vital points.
Magnificent goal. Well, Phil Foden is still in a heap near the halfway line, but credit Andy Madley. He allowed City to continue.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb battle between Southampton FC and Manchester City FC on Saturday 10 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Being kind to each other is Ubudu.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Chetu, do you want to play Market Day now?
Doing things together as a community can be even more fun than doing them on our own.
Amo loves it so much when we can just be ourselves and learn about our culture together.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC 2.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Right, let me take some of your calls now. Let me start with Ntombi in Mpumalanga. Good morning to you, Ntombi. You want to reflect on employment equity?
Yes, Thulasizwe. As a black female South African, we are still recognized as the not underrepresented group. I'll tell you a story. I'm not going to mention the university.
Sure.
Again, it's at higher education. I had applied for a position, an academic position at one of the universities in Cape Town. I'm not going to mention.
Sure.
And I know the university doesn't have a black staff. They might have, I think, 2 non-South African black staff. I met almost all the criteria. I applied. I know I've got good working experience. I've got everything that they needed. They got back to me and they said to me, listen, your CV is good. We're impressed with the work that you're doing. But unfortunately, you don't meet part of the underrepresented population in the university, which is black South African women. And I was like, wow.
Okay.
When then, because with this university, when you shortlisted, it no longer becomes a private. So everyone knows that you've applied. The shortlisted individuals then need to present to the department. 3 white females were shortlisted and 1 colored male were shortlisted.
Sure.
This is a department that doesn't have a black academic staff. Yet, when they get back to you, they say, listen, you don't form part of the underrepresented group, which is black South African women.
Yeah.
And you think people are still complaining about the equity, especially in higher education. Really, the minister should look into it. Because some departments just don't want to transform.
So, Ntombi, based on your experience, Ntombi, sorry if you don't mind, what do you say to those who are saying, why should we continue to frame these issues along racial lines? Why should you mention black South Africans, white female South Africans? Just from your own experience, no expertise needed, your own experience, why do these categories matter?
I think they do matter because in some instances, we still need a lot of transformation in a lot of organizations in South Africa, and the opportunities were not offered to black people. Therefore, the quotas need to be in place so that we ensure transformation of black academics into these organizations or positions, especially academia. We need to make sure that young people do the masters and we give them the experience to actually get into lecturing, get into academic positions, because we were never offered these positions. You will look at NRF. The strategic goals of NRF is to ensure that previously disadvantaged academics get the funding to build their research portfolio, in order for them to meet the criteria at a higher education institution.
Okay.
So we definitely need these quotas in most of the institutions because they are against transformation.
All right, Ntombi, thank you for that. That's Ntombi in Mpumalanga there. Let me go to Slee in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Slee.
Good morning. Good morning, Thulasizwe. How
Yes,
are you?
I'm well. Please go ahead.
I'm good, thank you. Thulasizwe, the thing is, we cannot end the conversation around employment equity because we can't keep on pretending like the people that the Employment Equity Act is trying to help are people that have not been oppressed for the past 400 years or so. 30 years is not enough to redress what has been done. And more especially, what we need to also recognize is the relationship between unemployment of the majority of people in South Africa and crime, right? Because it's very seldom that you will see an educated and employed person committing the kind of crimes that you see. So the more we educate people and give them opportunities, and we raise our middle class population, especially in the underprivileged communities like Black and colored people, the more we will root out our communities from crime, because we're going to keep on building from that middle class. And when it comes to Black women face a very special kind of discrimination in the workplace. They face a discrimination entering the workplace because of the stereotypes that are held against Black women. When a Black woman addresses issues at work, even though she's addressing the issues in the very same way that any other group would have addressed those issues, they are termed and they are classified as angry. And then it makes it hard for them to be employed, because people don't want to deal with Black women, because Black women are not supposed to be strong. And that in the employment spaces, they are taken out quickly. And so, sorry, Thulasizwe, just on a quick note. Another thing that we also need to address in South Africa is the relationship between European foreigners with no education occupying spaces in corporate South Africa with no education
at high
levels for jobs that could be done by Black and colored and all underprivileged South Africans with education.
Thank you for that.
Education for that matter.
Thank you for that. That's Lee in Cape Town weighing in on that issue. Let me take a call from Jacques, because Jacques, you're also calling along the same theme. Good morning to you. Talk to me about employment equity.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Always good. Thulasizwe, there are two things I wanted to pick up on. It's so strange at the moment that all the demographic of people that are talking about the equity in terms of job equity and stuff like that, I feel I may be saying something that's very controversial, but it's true. Is these people should be entrepreneurs? Why are we not treating or educating the Black youth of South Africa to be entrepreneurs? Because we are complaining all the time, and I'm an Indian person. We complain all the time about equity in working for other people. So is it better for us to be entrepreneurs or to be working for other people? I mean, the whole thing about our life building generational wealth is we need to be our own business owners.
So it's a fair point.
That's the first one. And the other thing is that I feel that the Indian people are underrepresented because we came here as slaves. So if you look at it from that point, we are even more rarer or been put through the ringer more than any other culture or color in this country, because we were brought to a country that we had no culture in terms of having some ethnicity, and we never spoke the language, and we were never given any benefits to it when we came to this land. So I feel that in terms of what the lady was saying previously about Black and colored people, I think her exclusion of Indian people is that the history of this country is not being told or being explained to our children correctly.
So, Jacques,
thank you so much for a wonderful program.
All right, thank you for that, Jacques. Just on the point about everyone being an entrepreneur, those entrepreneurs will need to employ people as well, and then they would need to navigate all of these issues. I don't believe that everyone can be an entrepreneur. I suppose you can, at some level, be engaged in some entrepreneurial activity or another. But I mean, scalability, that being your main source of income, you will always have people that are employed. And when those people are employed, these are some of the factors that need to be taken into account into, how do you ensure representativity? Is that the word? Equitable representation of demographics in this country in a manner that addresses past imbalances. And I suppose that's the heart of the debate, whether enough has been done as mandated by the Constitution. Let me talk to Kabelo in Durban. Good morning to you, Kabelo. You want to talk to me about the citizenship situation and the ruling that has come through on that.
Morning, Thulasizwe. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Let us accept that in our country, we have no laws, we have nothing that is protecting us, we are on our own. Firstly, if that thing happened to any country, by today, all the country will be blocked and stand still. Because you cannot, as a constitutional court, you're supposed to protect the laws and interpret the laws. But the laws is in the constitution of the country. Now, you find the constitutional court says they declare that law as invalid and must be scrapped. Don't you need to, to send the law to Parliament and let the Parliament make the law and go to the people outside in a public scrutiny before it's amended or it's scrapped by the Constitutional Court? How come the Constitutional Court just take the decision on behalf of the people in a very important matter?
Well, let me just say this, Kabelo. The Constitution itself grants that power to the courts, the Constitutional Court, to say that it must, and in fact I think it's written in those terms, that it must declare a law that is inconsistent with the Constitution to be invalid. It comes from the Constitution itself.
No, Thulas, I disagree.
You disagree with that provision?
The lawmakers in the Parliament, not the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court, they interpret the law.
Yes, I'm with you.
Why? Okay. Why now they don't declare the Section 25 as invalid and not fair to the people? Why they don't do that? Why need to go to Parliament and then the Parliament they need to go outside for people to vote for that law? I'm saying Thulas, in closing, in our country we are on our own. We have no civic movement. We have no people that they care about this country. If we have a civic movement in this country will be closed by now, because that, which means we must accept the rapists, the murderers, the torturers, all the racist colony to claim the status of the citizenship in our country.
Kabelo, thank you for that. Thank you for that engagement. That's Kabelo in Durban there. Boishelo, I'm sorry I can't get to you now, and JCK Kaunda, I can't get to you now, but we will call you back so that we take your calls a bit later on in the show.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy coming out of Pretoria's Montana area this morning. You will queue on Sefaka-Makato down to the M1, and then on the M1 all the way down to the N4 Hatfield split. It is just a stationary truck on the M1 South that is causing that enormous backlog this morning. Soutpan Road at Roslyn Road, still no traffic lights there. That's pretty heavy on the rundown from Ondas to Port. There's some traffic lights out between Lone Hill and Kyalami, so the main road's under quite a bit of pressure. And the N14 heading to Pretoria from Pretoria West up through the Brockfontein interchange towards John Foster, quite heavy even by its own busy standards. Crash on the N12 by the Glen, so from Reading interchange moving across towards Oakdean, that's quite slow, and a collision still with us causing delays on the R59 North up through the Randval area. If you've left the Val, that's quite heavy into a crash just before the Klip River Drive exit. Malvern just south of Durban, wow, what a wow, there's some major traffic backlogging there. It's a stationary, well, it's a truck that's jackknifed this morning on Memorial Park Sarnia Road, so out towards Hillary, so very heavy traffic, multiple routes. So Malvern just south of the N7, really heavily backed up. The N3 inbound, we're looking at all day delays again today into that Rumble Strip section. Traffic currently queuing from the M13 Paradise Valley on your way through to Spaghetti Junction. What you've been through the last couple of mornings, you're going through again today. At Cape Town, lots of traffic on Marine Drive, Bayside Mall at Tableview, basically right the way through to about that Milner Road junction in Pardon Island. And the earlier crash on the R300 north of the Cales River exit up by Van Riebeeck Road has been cleared. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Corporate Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs will be conducting public hearings on Independent Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill 2023 on 7 May 2025 at Legislature Auditorium in Mahikeng, Nakamudiri Mlema District, Sarafina Community Hall and Potchefstroom, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Kismet Community Hall in Kismet, Riebeek, Dr. Ruth Sohomutsi Mompati District, and Rustenburg in Old Town Hall, Bujanala District. All hearings start at 10.
Bafana want to seal their envelope to East Africa with a paramount victory in front of their home fans. But the Flames plan to double the heat. This is the second leg of the final round of the Total Energies CAF Chan 2025 qualifiers. South Africa tackles Malawi on Sunday, 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
4 minutes to 8. Let me take one or two of your voice notes now at this point. Let me hear from this person who wants to reflect on their, I don't know, are they calling for the scrapping of the Constitution? Let's hear.
Good morning, Thulas. It's Vugane from Durban. You know, Thulas, this thing of the DA always questioning everything about the Constitution when it comes to the Constitution liberating blacks. Why don't we just scrap the whole Constitution and redraft it again? Because it seems it's not supposed to work for blacks in particular. It's supposed to work for whites. If it's supposed to work for blacks, it's supposed to be taken to court. So let's scrap the whole thing, redraft it again. We have intelligence lawyers. We can redraft this thing within a month.
Yeah, so I can only imagine the undertaking that would be, right, to scrap the whole thing. The Constitution is what it is. It's not perfect, but to say it works for white South Africans only and not black South Africans, I'm not sure I can agree with that. There are many, many judgments that are based on the interpretation of the Constitution itself that have been empowering of black South Africans over the many, many years in the areas of socio-economic rights, for example. There have been many changes that have come through because of this very constitution. And in fact, even the issues that are in contention right now around employment equity, they find themselves in Section 9, subsection 2 of the Constitution, for example. That's where the mandate comes from. So I don't know to what extent you can argue that the Constitution works for white South Africans and not for black South Africans. Sure, different segments of society have different interests. So they will go and target that particular area that is in their interest and challenge that. But I think the same can be said by other categories within our population, that you should also pick up that which is close to your heart and challenge that and ensure that it is entrenched and realized in line with the Constitution. Begin Mpumalanga, good morning to you. You want to talk about equity laws?
Unfortunately, you cannot move Mount Everest, my brother. You know, when you deal about issues of the point of law, I wish you would have people who understand what the Constitution entails and the powers of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Rightfully articulated when you said that the Parliament can only enact, but the Constitution is the only body that can, strike off the law. And it is the only, this is the only court that has been given exclusive powers. So people need to understand that we've got the so-called interpretation of statute. When you do law, you'll understand that. Where you will understand the remedies available. We speak about reading in, reading down, striking out, and so on. It is only the Constitution that can do that. And I don't understand why people now say that this issue was supposed to go to Parliament 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Constitution will look into the legislation and make sure at the end of the day that it does conform with it. And if it does not conform with it, it's either they will align it by reading out or reading in certain ways.
Yeah.
So I think, Thulas, then you need at least to educate us one way or the other.
Yeah.
I just wanted to contribute in that session.
Thank you, Peggy. In fact, you preempt me, and I'll make that comment just after the news, because I've been reflecting about that, to say part of the importance of the conversation we're having now is not merely self-indulgent, let's talk Constitution, let's talk law. No, actually, there's a critical importance to it. To me, it talks to the need to have carried everyone along with ample information, explaining exactly how the Constitutional Court does what it does. But I'll make a bit more of that comment just after the news with Jolani Tolongwepe, who is on standby now.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Top stories: Asawa, more suspects linked to missing journalist to appear in Mpumalanga court today, and the conclave set to elect the new pope from today. Good morning. The case against 3 of the 4 suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Mdluli is expected to be heard at the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. One of the suspects is understood to be known to Mdluli's family, while the other is a minor. The 4th suspect is also expected to appear in the dock later this week. Horisani Sitole reports.
One of the suspects is understood to be known to the family of Mdluli and is believed to be the last one to be seen with the couple. The other 3 were found with different vehicle parts believed to be that of the missing journalist. One of the 4 suspects is a minor who was released into the custody of his parents. Mdluli's son Treasure says his family hopes that the accused will lead the police to finding the missing couple.
South Africans who lost their citizenship due to Section 61A of the Citizenship Act of 1995 will now be recognized as citizens again. This follows a Constitutional Court judgment declaring the section unconstitutional. The Act previously stated that South Africans who lose their citizenship if they voluntarily acquire another nationality unless they had applied for and received permission to retain it from the Minister of Home Affairs. Justice Stephen Majid delivered the ruling at the Constitutional Court in Braamfontein yesterday.
The Court makes the following order. 1. The order of constitutional invalidity of the Supreme Court of Appeal is confirmed. 2. It is declared that Section 6(1)A of the South African Citizenship Act 88 of 1995 is inconsistent with the Constitution and is invalid from its promulgation on 6 October 1995. 3. It is further declared that those citizens who lost their citizenship by operation of Section 6(1)A of the South African Citizenship Act 88 of 1995 are deemed not to have lost their citizenship.
The City of Johannesburg has clarified the confusion around a surcharge by the city on electricity tariffs. The city's finance MMC, Margaret Arnold, says the surcharge has remained the same, contrary to reports of an additional 70 rand to the original amount. Introduced in July 2024, the surcharge sparked widespread backlash amid growing concerns over rising electricity costs. Arnold also said that the City of Johannesburg is not alone in adding surcharges to electricity tariffs.
A surcharge has been put in place not only in the City of Johannesburg, but Cape Town already has theirs much longer than us, and Ekurhuleni is following, Tshwane is following, and so are all the other metros following. But let me set the record straight. The surcharge of 200 rand remains on 200 rand. It's not going to be increased to 270 rand. It remains on 200 rand, and it will not change.
Civil engineer Gundo Maswime says there are still many questions that need clarity in the George building collapse incident findings. Yesterday marked a year since the George building collapse in the Western Cape, which claimed 34 lives and left 28 others injured. Tabling the National Home Builders Registration Council investigation report last month, Human Settlements Minister Thulasizwe Simelane said the company responsible, Liatal, bypassed regulatory processes and failed to declare its multi-story construction intentions to the Home Builders Council. The report also revealed systematic failures in oversight and regulatory breaches on the side of the George municipal officials. Maswime says only the final forensic report will help clarify some of the lingering questions.
What caused that? Was it under-designed, where the columns were smaller than what they are supposed to be, or was it built with substandard material or methods that were maybe unacceptable? So that is why that is very important. Because once we know that, let's say, for example, the issue was the design, we are now going to have to question what are the credentials of the engineer who did the design? Was the engineer an engineer? Because sometimes the engineer is a technician, the engineer is a technologist.
There's a great deal of anticipation as the Conclave is set to elect the new Pope in the Vatican City starting from today. Some cardinals will remain at the Sistine Chapel until the new pontiff gets a nod. The new Pope will replace Pope Francis, who passed away due to stroke and heart failure last month on Easter Monday. More than 100 cardinals, all under the age of 80 and from across the world, will take part in the conclave and decide who should be the next leader of the 1.4 billion member church. Vatican expert Philip Pulela explains.
When the cardinals have reached a decision, the cardinal who has been elected says, yes, I accept my election as Pope, as successor of St. Peter. The ballots on which the cardinals have written the name of the new Pope, or the names of all the people that they have elected, are burned after each vote. Then a chemical additive is added, so it will be black for we have not elected a Pope, white, we have elected a Pope.
Recapping the top story this hour, the case against 3 of the 4 suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Seri Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Mdluli is expected to be heard at the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. For SFM News, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
This just in, a 38-year-old man named Tabang is a real Outsurance client who switched and now saves an unbelievable 363 Rand a month on his 2018 Toyota Corolla 1.6. That's 363 more money in his pocket every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you and on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy out of Pretoria's Montana area this morning. It's a stationary truck on the M1 South at the N4 Hatfield split. Traffic is back beyond the Montana exit. And Sefaka Makato from Montana is a heavy delay just to get to the highway and then to get into it as well. N14, the reason for the hold up there is a crash before the Brockfontein interchange. The N14 coming towards Pretoria from the R55 Pretoria West exit is solidly backed up. That is a collision hotspot this time of the morning. Always has been, probably always will be. The R59 north at Clip River Drive, that crash still badly backing up traffic through Randval on the way to Joburg. Collision by the Glen on the N12 holding up direction Soweto. Very heavy pressure in Durban's Malvern area. Stationary truck, or a jackknife truck in fact, on Sania Road out towards Hillary. Behind that, the traffic through Malvern is really badly backed up. There's hardly a route moving in that area. Cape Town R300 north, worth a mention, queuing up to get onto the N1 outbound. So just after Van Riebeek Road, you'll see some traffic up to that N1 highway for a turn towards Paarl, and very busy on Marine Drive. Table view through to Milner Road in Parton Island is the extent of that queue. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer, the clash between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs in the Nedbank Cup final is expected to bring hundreds of millions of rands into Durban. And we'll also bring you the story of the Proteas women who are building momentum ahead of the World Cup in Sri Lanka. Details just before 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 8, it's good to be in your company. We're into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. I just want to round off on that point that we started in the last hour. There was a caller, I think it was Kabelo from Durban, if I'm not mistaken, who was saying, not understanding the powers of the Constitutional Court to make the kinds of decisions that they make to strike down a law and say it was unconstitutional and where that is derived from. And Kabelo, they're making the point and saying that let's rather scrap this entire constitution. Why don't they send this law back to the lawmakers for them to fix? So my thinking of it is that a lot more needed to be done. I think in the transition period, we thought we've done enough to educate public information and education about how the Constitution works, how the country will function in a Constitution that is supreme, a Constitution that declares itself that it's supreme, and law or conduct that is inconsistent with it is invalid to the extent of its inconsistency. I believe we should have continued with that work of civic and public education. And I think the current Chief Justice, in her interview with the JSC, I think she alluded to that, just bringing these processes closer to people, taking people along. That's always very important. And that's why the reasoning of judges when they write judgments must always be explained. And the source of this power to strike down laws, Section 172 of the Constitution, which says when deciding a constitutional matter within its power, a court must declare that any law or conduct that is inconsistent with the Constitution is invalid to the extent of its inconsistency. So once it's determined that this law is inconsistent with the Constitution, they have no choice. They've been told it's peremptory. It says they must declare that it is invalid. The remedies that they put in place, they must also be explained. When do you send the bill back to Parliament with a reading in that says temporarily, while Parliament fixes this? When do you do that? When do you cut out words? And so on and so on. So that's just my thinking about how we go around. Let's get buy-in of everyone around these processes. I don't know what you make of that argument. You can continue to engage me on that and other issues as well. You can call me on 086 000 2032. I'll also take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The third hour of the Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Time. When you're a kid, it moves slower than a sloth trying to get through airport security. There is just so much of it. Skip forward a few years to your 20s. Time is still your friend. It says have some balance. Go party and have fun. Then your 30s hit. And time suddenly steps on the accelerator like it's trying to catch a traffic light before it goes red. 40s. Now time is moving faster than your 10-year-old on a sugar high. 50. You're desperately trying to save as much as you can, but time is moving so fast. And all you can think is, where did all the time go? That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time for some much-deserved you time. Now, isn't that a compelling enough reason to invest? Ellen Gray. Long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
No matter our abilities, we can all play together.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Wow! I love this game!
Learning new things is the best part about having a friend who knows something you don't know.
Oh, yay! We are all special in our own way.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
14 minutes after 8. Let's tell you about this now, coming out of the city of Tshwane, which has launched a what they're calling a strengthened anti-corruption reporting system that they say is designed to ensure the safety and anonymity of whistleblowers, which they say will reinforce the city's commitment to integrity and accountability in the public service. Let's speak to Kulufelo Morodi, who is the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services at the city of Tshwane. Good morning to you, MMC, and thank you for your time. So how will this system work, and how is it different from any other whistleblower hotline that is out there?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And this system is, I think what we've done in Tshwane is to intensify our fight against corruption. And we realize that for us to fight corruption, we need to have whistleblowers who will feel safe and protected. We know that as a country, we've struggled to protect our whistleblowers in the past. So what we have done is to make sure that it's becoming safe for them to be able to report. There are various platforms that they can use to report corruption. We've set up walk-in facilities where whistleblowers can come through to our offices. They can come through to Tshwane House. they can come to our office in semi-marks and also in our Centurion office. But what also they can do is send us emails where they can report this. They can also call into our hotline. So they will be protected because we are working very closely with our Metro Police Department as well as SAP to intensify this. But I think at the heart of it is them giving us credible information but being afforded the opportunity to remain completely anonymous.
When you say the whistleblowers will be protected, what do you mean by that? What do you have by way of the back-end infrastructure and resources that will ensure that, one, there are no leaks, from within the city of Tshwane that may reveal the identity of the person who brought a particular report, as well as just ensuring that they are protected as well? What resources are you putting in place?
So what we have done is professionalize it in a way that we've got the people that are running it who are in charge. We've got our CAE, but we've also got an ethics manager there that are the ones that are ensuring it. Something, I think it was maybe a gap in the system before, but now what we have is that we have properly fitted the element of people being able to give credible information, but not their information leaking. When we've got the ethics manager, it does help us. Information hasn't come out. And we've already had successes to last week. As you see through the statement, there's 900 cases that the city has already dealt with. We had people already dismissed, and most of this information came through whistleblowing. So I think the biggest issue that we did have was the fact that people just didn't feel safe in whistleblowing. But now, because there is that gap that we have closed, people are feeling safe, and already we are dismissing people. Cases have been opened against people. Some people have already been arrested. Just an example that we can give recently, there was an attempt to steal a transformer, and through this whistleblowing, we were able to have those individuals apprehended. So this does work, and I really want to encourage even your listeners that please make use of that email address if they don't want to phone in, but let them report it, because we cannot fight crime as a city if we don't have the information. So they must feel free. They must use that hotline, report any wrongdoing that you see, especially like for us as corporations. We are very concerned about the use of our vehicles, because one of the things that we are doing to is that we are building internal capacity. That means the city is starting to buy their own vehicles and resources. So we need to make sure that they last long. People look after them.
I hear you, MMC. I hear you, MMC. I hear you, but the question that I'm asking is the safety of whistleblowers. You and I know just how precarious that situation is. There's been a lot of criticism around the Protected Disclosures Act. We've seen incidents where whistleblowers have been killed. I mean, most recently, that case of Babita Diokaran being the most prominent example, and the kind of backlash that whistleblowers can face. What I'm asking, beyond ensuring that there are no leaks emanating from within the system that will alert those who are implicated that this is the person who blew the whistle, what other measures are you taking? Are you, for instance, willing to go as far as to providing physical security once a person has reported and now they feel that their life is in danger?
Absolutely, it is for that reason, it's cases like that that have inspired us that we need to make sure that whistleblowers are protected. Yes, and I did give an example that we are working closely with our Metro COP, that's the TMPD, with SAPS as well, that when people will require protection, they will be given. And obviously, their security will also be assessed, and then that protection will be definitely offered. Because we don't want to say we're fighting corruption with lip service. We have to put our money where our mouth is. So that is what we are doing, making sure that they will be protected. And I can tell you, our group audit and risk team it is a priority for the city at this stage. We have invested a lot of money into this program, so we need to make sure that people are safe. But it also works because when we fight corruption, we are able to save money, and then we are able to deliver services. We'll have money to repair potholes because money is not, it doesn't go to our wasteful expenditures, but it goes to service delivery. But we must protect the people that are helping us. So this is exactly the reason why we have this Thulasizwe.
All right. MMC, thank you for that. Thank you for that update. That's the MMC for Corporate and Shared Services in the city of Tshwane, Kulufelo Morodi.
The Saints understand it's too late to change things around, but it's never too late to beat defending champions and bow with pride.
He chips the goalkeeper. It's an absolute beauty. It's an absolute beauty from Musa.
However, the Citizens are forced to settle for a top 3 finish. They won nothing but 3 vital points.
Absolutely magnificent goal. Well, Phil Foden is still in a heat near the halfway line, but credit Andy Madley. He allowed City to continue.
This is the Premier League. Experience the superb battle between Southampton FC and Manchester City FC on Saturday 10 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hey Mzansi, you better get moving because FlySafair's Lekker 11 Rand sale is on. That's right, as of right now, 50,000 11 Rand flights are up for grabs to all FlySafair's local destinations for travel to 30 November 2025. But you better hurry because these flights are going to disappear faster than the last piece of buri on a braai. Hurry to flysafair.co.za now because this sale is too lekker to last long. T's and C's apply.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Right, let me take one or two of your voice notes now. A lot of you weighing in on some of the decisions that have come through from the courts. The latest, of course, being that decision to restore the lost citizenship that was lost by those citizens who acquired citizenship of another country. That law has now been ruled to be constitutionally invalid.
Thulasizwe, this is Bloemfontein. With this ruling from the court about the citizenship, I've got a question here. Those that are being offered refugee status by Donald Trump and Elon Musk, what will happen to them if they take up that offer? Will they lose citizenship of this country because they now being protected by America because they are being attacked and killed in South Africa? There's a genocide that is going against them. Will they lose our citizenship?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I suppose it depends on whether they become American citizens, right? Because you can be in a different country as an asylum seeker, but not necessarily a citizen of that country. The understanding is that you're temporarily there, and therefore once the situation that you're running away from in your country improves, you can always go back to your country. The second part of my attempt at responding to you is that if the American law requires you to renounce your other citizenship, and I don't know if it does, but if it does, and you prefer that you're taking up American citizenship or citizenship of any other country that requires you to renounce your South African citizenship, I think that's an easier case to deal with. The difficult case, and I suppose it's no longer difficult in light of this ruling, are those cases where the other country doesn't require you to relinquish South African citizenship. Now, in terms of this ruling, whatever the circumstances, even if you're leaving this country under that cloud that says you are disgruntled with this country, etc., if that other country doesn't require you to relinquish South African citizenship, well, now you can hold both that country's citizenship as well as this country's citizenship. So I hope I'm making sense in trying to explain my understanding of these matters. Let me take this one. It has to do with someone concerned about the time that it takes for judgments to be delivered in this country.
Hi, very good morning to us, Johnson here in Bombela. I'm very much concerned about how our courts actually operate, especially in terms of reserving judgment for months and months. It's concerning with all the backlog that we're always told is there in the courts. So they reserve judgment for a very long time and the people keep on waiting and waiting. That must come to an end. What do? They have about 12 judges. Why do we have to wait for a very long time for judgment? Yeah. They have listened to the arguments. Why do Come on, man.
Johnson, I hear you. And my little understanding of how the Constitutional Court works, it seems to me, and it's purely from observation, that they will have a season when they have as many hearings as possible. So they commit themselves to a period when they say, let's listen, let's hear the cases, let's hear the arguments and go through it all. And then it seems they then take a period to prepare and write judgments, and following that elaborate process that has been explained from time to time during JSC interviews. And then you will have a season where they just, these judgments almost hit you rapidly, one after the other. And I get a sense that that's the season we are in now, the delivery of those judgments. I could be wrong. I could be getting it completely wrong. But you are right. The time that it takes to deliver judgments has been an issue of concern. As a result, you will have seen some cases where some judges have been called to account before the JSC for the time that they take to prepare judgment. So you're absolutely right. There's that concern. The capacity in the judiciary continues to be an issue of concern. Themba in Gqeberha, good morning. You also want to weigh in on this Constitutional Court ruling?
Yes, Thulasizwe, good morning, man. Look, Thulasizwe, the first thing to be explained, the Constitutional Court assumes its power from the Constitution itself.
Yep.
That one is clear. Secondly, there is what is called in the Constitution first-generation rights and second-generation rights. You will know this. That relates to those who are born in the country, the right to life, and the second-generation rights, it refers to social rights.
Yeah.
Now, the right to citizenship of South Africa now is the first-generation right. So it's locked up in the sunset clauses. But the country or parliament itself can go back to parliament and put limitations to anyone who commits or does anything outside the country called South Africa, for that person to lose or not to be allowed back in the country. But just for Parliament to enact a law that simply tampers with first-generation rights, the Constitution does not allow that.
Yeah.
But those limitations can be put in place for any act of violation or criminal act or any act that is seen to be contrary to the interest of the country. South Africa can enact a law that limits the entry or a citizenship of that person.
All right.
The second option is for those people that earn the citizenship by stroke of a signature of the minister. You were not born in South Africa. You earn citizenship of South Africa by the fact that you spent most time in South Africa. You can lose that right as a citizen of South Africa.
Yeah. No, Themba, thank you for highlighting
so
those.
Parliament has to go back and do work.
All right. Thank you for that. That's Themba in Gqeberha there. Some of the points that Themba is making, the rationale and purpose that was being served by this law have been addressed in that Constitutional Court judgment, that they could find no proper rationale for why. Why should you lose your South African citizenship simply because you've acquired citizenship of another country? And the Constitutional Court not impressed with some of the justifications and reasoning of the department as far as that is concerned.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome to your sport. We'll kick off with Durban's Moses Mabhida Stadium. They're not just hosting the Nedbank Cup final. It's apparently a national economic revival. The clash between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs expected to bring hundreds of millions into the city. Accommodation fully booked, businesses bracing for a tourism boom. City officials say the stadium is ready, security plans in place, and fans from all over South Africa are set to arrive as early as tomorrow. In the meanwhile, Orlando Pirates kept their Premiership title hopes alive with a 2-1 win over Golden Arrows at Moses Mabhida Stadium last night. Second half goals from Patrick Maswangani and Shekofata Mabasa lifting the Sea Robbers to within 9 points of leaders Mamelodi Sundowns, who've played one more game. Meanwhile, Declan Rice saying Arsenal can achieve something great and deliver one of the biggest nights in the club's history by overcoming the odds to beat Paris Saint-Germain and book their place in the Champions League final. Arsenal head into tonight's second leg of their semi-final against the French champions, trailing by 1 goal.
So there's no fear. Like I said, I think the goal inside 3 minutes probably shocked us a little bit, shocked the atmosphere a little bit. But once we found a foothold in the game again, and we started creating chances, like I said, the goalkeeper made some amazing saves. we fully believed that we could beat them. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be, but we've seen enough and we know enough as a team that tomorrow night we can do something really, really good, and we definitely believe that we belong at this level.
On to rugby, and Springbok Sevens captain Selwyn David says he's extremely proud of the team's effort over the weekend. The Blitzboks went unbeaten in Los Angeles, finishing with a 19-5 win over Spain to claim the World Championship title. A trio of Ronald Brown, Mfundo Ndlovu and Kieran Nokia boosting the squad for the trip to the USA.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We gave it our all. We knew it was going to be tough, but we just left everything on the pitch. We just fight for each other, fight for the bets, and it's amazing.
And finally, the Proteas women are gearing up for their must-win clash. And this is as they fight to stay alive in the ongoing series. They're back in Colombo and they're currently they're bowling as they take on India, who are on 154 for the loss of 4 wickets. And the Proteas women yet to bat. That's a wrap of your sport. We'll have more with John Hediker around 12:30. I'm Zaikan.
And I'm Jolani Tulongwepe, making headlines. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge resumes today with the cross-examination of forensic and legal linguistic Dr. Zakira Dokrat. The case against 3 of the 4 suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Ndluli is expected to be heard at the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. One of the suspects is understood to be known to Ndluli's family, whilst the other is a minor. And the United Nations Secretary General has expressed his concern about Indian military operations against Pakistan, reiterating his call for maximum restraint from both countries. Antonio Guterres was reacting to the news that India had launched strikes on various sites in Pakistan in the aftermath of an attack on Hindu tourists. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy from Pretoria's Montana area heading down towards the N4 highway using the N1. It's a stationary truck which has been with us all morning. Just before you get to that Hatfield and Emelafleli split, the traffic is back to Siafako Makato. Crash on the M1 north at Olifantsfontein. All lanes open there, but it is having an impact going south. There's quite a backlog of traffic from Brockfontein. Having a look at that, all the way down to Olifantsfontein. It's heavy. Lights are out at Main and Luckland. So between Lone Hill and Kyalami, there's some real traffic backlogging to get through there. Crash on the N12 near the Glen, still holding up traffic moving west from Alberton direction Soweto, if you like. Durban's all-day delay on the N3 is something you must keep in mind these days. The rumble strips just past Pavilion Mall, pushing traffic heavily back through towards Pavilion Mall and back towards Paradise Valley M13. So it is heavy and it will be slow all day. There, big overflow on the M13. So that jams from Westville across the works of the N2 bridge in towards the Sherwood area. Also, the M7 into Pinetown was really busy yesterday. Is again this morning. Big queues up over St John's Avenue Bridge. Lengthy backlog into Stellenbosch, just outside Cape Town, the R304, passing Kaya Mundi, heading into central Stellenbosch is heavy, and a crash involving a pedestrian outbound on the N2 at Meway in front of Khayelitsha. That's quite heavy from the R300. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. This is news that will put us in a foul mood from Moody's. Tell me about them and what they're saying about our growth forecast.
So Moody's has lowered South Africa's GDP growth projection for 2025 to 1.5%, down from the 1.7% forecasted in February. Now, this revision is part of a broader reassessment of global economic prospects, with the global economy now expected to expand by 1.9% in 2025 and 2.3% next year. These projections are lower than the previous forecast of 2.5% for both years. The lower forecast, of course, reflects rising concerns over protectionist U.S. trade policies, U.S.-China tensions, and dampened investor sentiment in advanced economies. According to Moody's, the uncertainty surrounding these policies can be more damaging to economic activity than the direct effects of tariffs, as it hampers economic planning. Now, in terms of credit ratings, Moody's is expected to announce its review for South Africa this month as part of its scheduled sovereign assessment cycle. In its last review in December, Moody's made no changes, affirming SA's credit rating and keeping the outlook stable.
I remember how closely we used to watch that, and then sub-investment grade became our reality, and we've lived with it ever since. But on the positive
side,
now
we're watching the outlooks.
we now look at the outlook, not what they will do with the rating itself. Tell me about private sector activity improving. That would sort of temper the bad news from Moody's, right?
That's right. And this is according to the S&P Global PMI, the private sector flashing signs of a recovery last month as business conditions stabilized after a 4-month downturn. Now, the PMI increased to 50 points in April from 48.3 in March, indicating growth as the index is not in contractionary territory anymore. The slight improvement was driven by gains in production, new orders and employment, supported by improved supply chains and a slight increase in demand. The services sector spearheaded the rebound, with modest growth also recorded in retail, wholesale and construction sectors. But the manufacturing sector continued to struggle with a decline in industrial output. This also evident in those PMI numbers that we've been receiving over the past few months. Now, employment also showed a slight increase, ending a 3-month period of job losses. Despite the positive trends, businesses faced headwinds from currency fluctuations, which drove up input costs due to the weakening rand. In response, firms increased their selling prices. Now, while sentiment was positive in April, expectations for the rest of the year slipped, and companies attributed this decline to domestic and international uncertainty.
All right, lastly, Ndauling, give us a sense of the kind of trading day we can expect on this Wednesday.
So local stocks likely to start mixed today as markets struggle to find direction. Now, in terms of company news, updates out from Datatech and DRD Gold. Absa out also with a big announcement. Chairman Sello Moloko will be stepping down, so traders will be reacting and digesting the news when markets open at 9 a.m. In Wall Street, all eyes are on the Fed as policymakers prepare to deliver a rates decision. Ahead of that move, futures are in the green. Then lastly, in Asia, sentiment upbeat following rate cuts in China. Markets in that region likely to close in positive territory today.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela. She's kept you updated on business, economics and the markets over the last 3 hours here on The Morning Brief.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Bafana want to seal their envelope to East Africa with a paramount victory in front of their home fans. But the Flames plan to double the heat. This is the second leg of the final round of the Total Energies CAF Chan 2025 qualifiers. South Africa tackles Malawi on Sunday, 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So here's a story that we undertook a few days ago that we would have a follow-up on. A caller calling us a few days ago talking about a break-in at the Kouga Municipality in which some firearms were stolen. Well, the municipality has confirmed now that a highly sophisticated break-in at the Humansdorp Traffic Department occurred, during which firearms, cash and documents were stolen in what authorities are calling a quote-unquote calculated and professional operation. So let's speak to Charles Duplessis, who is Kouga Municipal Manager. Good morning and thank you for your time. Just confirm for us the extent then of the losses. We were told that firearms were among what was stolen. How many firearms, how much cash, and what kinds of documents?
Yes, good morning. On the weekend of 26 to 28 April, somewhere over that time, we had a break-in at our Humansdorp offices of our traffic department. And it's something like a scene in a movie. We have got quite a sophisticated security there, set up there, and it was well planned, going through the roof, right on top of our bolt-in, walk-in bolt, concrete reinforced bolt, and they managed to come through the roof, avoid the security alarms and camera systems, and then managed to break a hole into that walk-in bolt and entering the main walk-in bolt in that office through that hole, and then also with using high power equipment managed to break in the two smaller vaults that were inside that vault.
Sure.
And what was stolen was, according to our registers that are missing, was 17 firearms, 18,000 rand cash that was stolen, and then face value documents, those documents that you use to print your vehicle license discs on. Sure. Some boxes of those were stolen as well.
Yeah.
So I think the main concern is however the firearms. We know in South Africa we have a problem with illegal firearms and illegal firearms being used in crimes and so on. After discovering this break-in, we contacted the police and Director for Priority Crimes, the Hawks, took over the investigation immediately.
Yeah.
So they are busy with the investigation.
It sounds very elaborate and detailed, the amount of planning that went into it. But also it sounds like what must have been a major operation. According to the police spokesperson, Marius McCarthy, quoted in the Herald, they believe that heavy machinery was in use in all of that, gaining access through the roof and digging and drilling a hole through the vault and then the smaller vaults within, as well as dismantling the alarm system. Where were your security? Where was your security in all of this?
Well, at this specific premises, we don't have manpower security. We have security that's alarms and camera system. That was used, and so it's difficult to say how they knew this. We don't want to speculate at where the information came from and around this, and I think the Hawks will be investigating all those possibilities. But certainly they knew exactly what they were going for and where to find it and where the things were located. Either they had prior reconnaissance and
would you agree that it was negligent? Would you agree that it was negligent to not have physical manpower security in a premises that keeps such items as firearms?
No, I don't think it was negligence. I don't think having security on the scene might necessarily have made any difference. What happens in those cases, in this type of operation, those people will just be kept hostage, and it's anyway impossible for the municipality to have armed guards in all these premises.
It's not all of the premises, only the ones where you keep cash, and then where you keep firearms. We have a problem in this country, as you pointed out, Mr. Duplessis, of firearms that are initially legal and lawful, ending up in illegal in the illegal firearm market. And this is what has happened with these 17 firearms. So I don't know if asking you to have increased security, both the security system, which was dismantled in this case, as well as physical security. I don't know if that's asking too much.
Well, it all depends on the cost of these things. The local government in general in South Africa and also in Kouga Municipality, we under attack on our infrastructure on a daily basis, all over the place. So every week we had cables stolen, break-ins happen. This was not a normal break-in. I can just mention that. It's nothing like what we usually experience. And I don't think any other arrangement would have made much of a difference, not with the professionality that this one was handled with.
All right.
Any idea how? We are anyway investigating with the security companies that are providing services with us to why and how this happened, and to take appropriate measures then to make sure that this does not happen going forward again.
Any idea how far you are with recovering, particularly those firearms, as well as those documents? Because, just random thinking, my initial thoughts are that there's potential for fraud, for those to start cropping up somewhere in some fraudulent context.
Yeah, at this stage, I can't speculate how far we are. I think that's for the Hawks to comment on. They're in full control of the investigation, and they've been working very hard on this case. And they were there basically immediately when we contacted the police. They immediately took over.
All right.
With the investigation, and I'm quite confident that they will have success going forward.
All right. Mr. Du Plessis, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Charles Du Plessis. He's the Kouga Municipal Manager.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me bring in Bond in Gqeberha. Good morning to you, Bond. Long time no speak, my good friend. Talk to me about the employment equity laws.
Thank you very much, Thulas and the listeners. My name, Nyoka, means snake, so snakes hibernate in winter. So that's why I have to lie low for a time.
Hibernating.
Yes, hibernating. I just want to talk about transformation and the employment equity in general, in simple terms. Transformation by its nature is something that means a radical change from one form to another. Secondly, transformation is not in degrees like 20% change or 40%. It means 100% change. So one person who's affected negatively will feel the pinch and complain. Thirdly, it is what we agreed upon as one of our values in our constitution under section 1 that says it's the achievement of equality. In this case, achievement of equality means we're talking now about in the sense or in the context of employment. So really, that is what we agreed upon. There's a principle of law that says you cannot appropriate and disappropriate. You cannot approve on the one hand and disapprove on the other hand. We agreed on that in 1994 that this is one of our values. Like you have organs in your body, the value of achievement of equality is one of our organs in our new construct democracy. 1998, the Employment Equity Act was formed. Once there's slow pace, there is a need to amend it. Yeah. So this is an amendment to what we agreed upon as far back as 1994 and 1998. So I'm surprised that there's all this noise against it, but I'm surprised that there have been no friends of the cause by all those that have brought transformation to assist the Ministry of Trade and Industry in their legal action against the DA action. Thank you.
All right. Bond, thank you for that. That's Bond in Gqeberha. An interesting point that he makes, that this is in that section of the Constitution, section 1, where we define ourselves and we say, this is the baseline. These are the things we agree on, and the achievement of equality being one of them. And then, according to Bond, in his reading, when that is being done, you now have people who are now seeking to sort of, renege on that mutual agreement that we all have in terms of those values in the Constitution. Putana in Rosebank, good morning. Also on the same issue.
Yes, good morning, my brother. The employment equity was designed not to be effective. The ANC was manipulated by DA. The DA was enjoying this employment equity because it was just a voluntary scheme. It was not effective. The private company never complied with that because it was voluntary. It is now after 30 years the ANC realized this thing is not working. Now they are crying because DA is working effectively for their own constituency. They are fighting them tooth and nail. They are doing very well for their constituents. You cannot complain about the constitutional court. They must complain about the quality of lawmakers that were put there. What are we expecting from them?
Yeah. All right, Butana, thank you for that. That's Butana in Rosebank, also on the same issue. Let me take a quick voice note, also talking about the DA and reflecting about, their relationship and how they conduct themselves in relation to the Constitution.
Good morning. I don't think it's true that the DA is always questioning the Constitution. All what the DA is doing is questioning the interpretation of the Constitution by the lawmakers, which is by Parliament. And that's why we have the Constitutional Court to interpret
No, thank you
the
for
law.
that. Thank you for that.
As it's supposed to be understood, or was meant to be understood.
Yeah, thank you for that. And to be quite honest, I didn't understand any of the people that have called in this morning to be suggesting that the DA is always questioning the Constitution. What I've heard is a few people here and there saying that their approach to this issue shows that they are questioning transformation or are not committed to transformation. But the Constitution itself, I've not heard anyone suggesting that they are always questioning the Constitution. You could, I suppose, by extension say perhaps what Bond is saying amounts to that. That says, Bond in Kabeja was talking about, we all agreed and signed up to this Constitution, which includes a commitment to achieving equality. And by challenging such legislative schemes as the Employment Equity Act, Amendment Act, the DA is in a way seeking to renege on that agreement in the Constitution. I suppose you could say that, but I didn't hear anyone out and out accusing the DA of always questioning the Constitution. Legislation, yes, that's what we are seeing playing itself out in the courts.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still heavy on Pretoria's N1 South this morning. It's a stationary truck just before the N4 Hatfield Emelathleni split that really is heavy coming down from Montana down through Storenville Road and in towards that obstruction. South of Joburg, we're also looking at some quite heavy delays moving out of Alberton through Oakdale. That is a crash scene near Kamaro, just by the Glen Mall. Traffic backlogging through to Reading Interchange. Crash on the N1 North of the Golden Highway at Devlin, so coming through from the N12 Potch Highway. That is quite heavy. There's also been a crash on the M1 South before William Mandela, so delays as you approach that after Rivonia, and roadworks on the R21 are back in action. R21 North just by the Benoni exit, delays leaving the airport en route towards Pretoria. Just watch for some roadworks as well in Joburg on the Mike 1 South at Carr Street. They seem semi-permanent. There is some queuing pressure. It'll probably be busy all day again today. It certainly will be busy going into Durban on the N3. Keep that in mind, those rumble strips there just past Pavilion Mall. Traffic quite heavy coming through from Pinetown. Big overflow onto the M13 Westfield through to Sherwood, taking a lot of extra diverting traffic off that N3. M7 into Pinetown, still very busy as well. It was yesterday, probably even a touch worse this morning. In Cape Town, if you're driving out of town, been a crash on the N2 at Muway, a pedestrian knockdown there in front of Khayelitsha. Quite a heavy queue from sort of the airport runway area. And Komiki Road at this hour, very slow leaving Komiki as you get up into that Capri area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Corporate Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs will be conducting public hearings on Independent Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill 2023 on 7 May 2025 at Legislature Auditorium in Mahikeng, Nakamudiri Mlema District, Sarafina Community Hall and Potchefstroom, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Kismet Community Hall in Kismet, Riebeck, Dr. Ruth Sohomutsi Mompati District, and Rustenburg in Old Town Hall, Bujanala District. All hearings start at 10.
This Thursday on EFC, Africa's greatest meet the warriors of Brazil on a night where 3 titles will be contested. Amanda Lino takes on Mariana Salles, Willie Van Rooyen takes on Kleberson Sousa, and in the main event, JC Lamprecht goes to war with Luis Paulo Picanso for the light heavyweight title. EFC 123 live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Hey Mzansi, you better get moving because Fly Safair's like a 11 Rand sale is on. That's right. As of right now, 50,011 Rand flights are up for grabs to all Thulasizwe's local destinations for travel to 30 November 2025. But you better hurry because these flights are going to disappear faster than the last piece of buri on a braai. Hurry to flysaffair.co.za now because this sale is too lekker to last long. T's and C's apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, let's end off with some legal analysis of that Constitutional Court judgment that has confirmed that a key section of the South African Citizenship Act, which led to citizens automatically losing their citizenship after acquiring the citizenship of another country, that provision is unconstitutional. And by doing that, the Constitutional Court has restored the rights of those who have been affected since the law came into effect in 1995. Let's bring in Bophelo Seleke, who is independent legal analyst, a good friend of mine. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So just tell me your own reading of the arguments that won the day. Basically, it seems to me the Constitutional Court could find no rational decision, no rational reason or purpose that was being served by this provision that said if you acquire the citizenship of another country, you automatically lose the citizenship of South Africa. Am I correct in reading it that way?
100%, Thulas. The big picture takeaway from what the Constitutional Court would have made a pronouncement on yesterday is that it seeks to reaffirm citizenship as a fundamental right that can not simply be taken away, in that it's a core part of who we are and our right to belong as South Africans. And, Justice Majid also goes a step further to indicate that going forward, no South African should lose their citizenship simply because they become citizens of another country, unless there's a clear, justified, and lawful reasons.
Mm. And it seems to me that part of what the Constitutional Court did was to juxtapose against those who acquire South African citizenship, having had citizenship of another country, that they don't get to lose, especially if those countries don't require them to have one citizenship. What did you make of those arguments and that reasoning that says you needed to treat everyone on the same plane?
Yeah, I thought the judgment, at least in my analysis, had a three-pronged approach, in that firstly, as we've discussed, it sought to protect the right to citizenship as a fundamental right. But just to go a step further, the judgment also wanted, or at least sought to correct a long-standing injustice, in that South Africans that would have taken up other opportunities outside of the country would automatically be stripped of their citizenship, and in some instances without them even knowing. But what is also most important is the alignment of our law to international standards, in that dual citizenship is becoming the norm because people move across borders more often for work, family, and even education. And what this judgment does is that it acknowledges that reality and moves away from the outdated rules that punish people for having connections to more than one country. But closer to home, it also speaks to the administrative limitations or government power, in that the court sent a very clear message to the state that simply because you have the power does not simply mean you can wield it without the necessary guardrails in how you exercise the power that you have or wield as government.
And what are the consequences of the restoration of this citizenship to all these people that had lost it through this law going as far back as October 1996? I mean, someone listening might read it and say it's no coincidence that it was the Democratic Alliance that picked up this cause. There's always benefit to be reaped from that. Am I correct?
Yeah, 100%. The member confirmation orders by the Constitutional Court seek to validate and make effective any order of constitutional invalidity made by your so-called lower courts. So what simply the handing down of the judgment yesterday did was to restore citizenship of every South African citizen that would have, experienced this injustice in as far as having their citizenship revoked. So going as far back as 30 years ago, going as far back as possibly even before the 1994 dispensation, a retrospective approach, you would then have a situation where a Thulasizwe would have the necessary restoration of their right as a South African citizen, and they're able to participate fully in South African processes, whether they be political or otherwise. And that's really at the core of the judgment. It's a restoration of the dignity of the South Africans that would have otherwise been at the receiving end unjustly of this law.
Yeah. All right, Bophelo, thank you for your time. That's Bophelo Sileke, who is independent legal analyst. And that's how really we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Consider yourself briefed this morning. But don't go anywhere, because more quality news, current affairs and talk programming coming up here on SAFM, starting with The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. And that's coming up after the news.
Top stories. Sawa Benenge Tribunal resumes with the cross-examination of a forensic and legal linguistic and more suspects linked to missing journalists to appear in a Mpumalanga court today. Good morning. I'm Jolani Tulongwebe. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal probing sexual harassment allegations against Eastern Cape Judge President Sabin Benenge resumes today with the cross-examination of a forensic and legal linguistic, Dr. Zakira Dokrat. Dr. Dokrat gave a testimony yesterday on her analysis of the use of emojis in the WhatsApp exchanges between Judge President Benenge and Judge's Secretary Andiswa Mengo. Kani Mapanga reports.
Mengo alleges that she was sexually harassed by the top judge through in-person interaction and electronic communication between June 2021 and November 2022. Dr. Dokrat, who analyzed the text messages between the pair, found that they had a professional start but degenerated to the use of emojis to convey sexual acts. Dr. Dokrat further explained that while emojis have a standard definition, the meaning can change based on the context accompanying the use of the emoji. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The case against 3 of the 4 suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Serin Ndlovu and his partner Zodwa Mdluli is expected to be heard at the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga this morning. One of the suspects is understood to be known to Mdluli's family, whilst the other is a minor. The 4th suspect is also expected to appear in the dock later this week. Horisani Sitole reports.
One of the suspects is understood to be known to the family of Mdluli and is believed to be the last one to be seen with the couple. The other 3 were found with different vehicle parts believed to be that of the missing journalist. One of the 4 suspects is a minor who was released into the custody of his parents. Mdluli's son Treasure says his family hopes that the accused will lead the police to finding the missing couple.